Rain hammered the glass walls of a penthouse high above Chicago's glittering streets. Inside, Lucien Varelli stood alone in the dark, staring at his phone. One message, 23 words. He'd just ended his marriage with a text written by another woman's hands while she laughed drunk on his couch. Within hours, his wife would collapse. Within days, she'd be dying. And the Mafia king who owned an entire city would realize too late that he'd destroyed the only person who ever truly loved him. If you're watching from anywhere in the world, drop your city in the comments below and hit that like button. Let's see how far this story travels. Stay with me until the end. You won't forget this one. The penthouse smelled like expensive whiskey and bad decisions. Lucien Varelli stood at the window, phone still hot in his hand, watching rain streak down glass that cost more than most people earned in a year. Behind him, Celine Marrow sprawled across the leather couch, her dress riding up her thighs, mascara smudged from laughter and champagne. Jazz played low from hidden speakers. The city pulsed below them like a living thing, neon signs, headlights, the distant wail of sirens that never quite reached this high. "Did you send it?" Celine's voice cut through the music, sharp with triumph. Lucien didn't answer immediately. His thumb hovered over the phone screen, the message still visible. 23 words, clean, final. The kind of text that ended marriages without the mess of shouting or tears. "Elena, this isn't working anymore. We both know it. I need space to figure things out. Don't wait up." "Lucien." Celine sat up, impatience crackling in her tone. "Baby, did you?" "Yeah." His voice came out flat. "I sent it." She squealed, actually squealed, launching herself off the couch and wrapping her arms around him from behind. Her perfume, something French, something expensive he'd bought her last week, invaded his senses. "Finally! God, finally! Do you know how long I've waited for you to stop being such a coward?" The word landed wrong. Coward. Lucien Varelli was many things. A killer when necessary, a liar when convenient. A thief of legitimacy who'd built an empire on blood money and intimidation. But a coward? He pulled away from her embrace, walking toward the bar cart. Crystal decanters caught the light. Scotch, bourbon, gin. He poured 3 fingers of something amber and drank it in one swallow. The burn felt appropriate. "You did the right thing," Selena continued, oblivious or uncaring. She moved to the mirror, fixing her hair, admiring herself. "Elena was holding you back. All that guilt, all that responsibility. You're Lucien fucking Varelli. You shouldn't be going home to microwave dinners and a wife who doesn't even know what you do for a living." "She knows what I do." "Does she?" Selena turned, eyebrow raised. "Because from where I'm standing, she's been playing house while you built an empire. When's the last time she actually understood your world? When's the last time she made you feel like the king you are?" The king you are. That phrase used to mean something. Power, respect, fear. Tonight it just felt hollow. Lucien poured another drink. "You should go home." Celine's expression shifted. "Excuse me?" "It's late. I need to think." "Think?" She laughed, but there was an edge to it now. "You just divorced your wife via text message at my suggestion, and now you need to think? What the hell is there to think about?" "I said go home, Celine." The temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. Celine's jaw tightened. For a moment she looked like she might argue, might push back the way she always did when she didn't get her way. But something in Lucien's face must have warned her off. She grabbed her purse, her coat, her dignity, what was left of it. "Fine." She stopped at the door. "But don't call me tomorrow with regrets. Don't tell me you made a mistake. You wanted this. You've wanted this for months, so own it." The door slammed. Silence rushed in to fill the space she'd occupied. Lucien stood alone in his penthouse kingdom, drink in hand, and waited for relief that never came. The rain had turned vicious by 2 in the morning. Lucien sat in the dark, phone face down on the coffee table, trying not to look at it, trying not to check for a response. Elena should have seen the message by now. She was a light sleeper. Had been ever since their son was born 9 years ago, some maternal instinct that never fully shut off even when the kid was safe in his bed. 9 years old. Christ. When had that happened? Lucien drained his 4th drink. Or 5th. He'd lost count somewhere around the time Celine's perfume finally faded from the air. The apartment felt too big now, too quiet. He'd bought this place 3 years ago, right after the Cicero Street expansion went through. 42nd floor, 3,000 square feet, views of the entire downtown corridor, a monument to success. Elena had never even visited. "It's too high up," she'd said when he showed her photos. "What if there's a fire? What if something happens to the elevators?" Always worried, always thinking 3 moves ahead about disasters that never came. It had driven him crazy. All that anxiety, all that fear, when he was out there making moves that actually mattered, building something real. Except now, sitting in the dark with nothing but expensive furniture and rain sounds, Lucian couldn't remember the last time he'd felt anything real at all. His phone buzzed. The sound jolted through him like voltage. Lucian grabbed it, heart hammering in a way that would have embarrassed him if anyone could see. But the message wasn't from Elena. Marcus. "Boss, we got a problem with the shipment. Feds sniffing around the warehouse on Grand. Need you to make a call." Lucian stared at the text, trying to care. 6 months ago, a message like this would have had him on the phone immediately, mobilizing lawyers, arranging transfers, covering tracks. Now all he felt was tired. "Not tonight," he typed back. "Handle it." "Boss, this is—" "I said handle it, Marcus." He silenced the phone and set it back down. The rain kept falling. The city kept breathing. And somewhere out there, his wife was reading 23 words that ended 15 years of marriage. Lucien closed his eyes and tried to remember when everything got so complicated. The memories came uninvited, the way they always did when he drank too much. 19 years old, working the overnight shift at Mendez Auto Body on the south side. Grease under his fingernails, engine oil staining his jeans, $5 an hour under the table because he didn't have papers yet. His mother's family had come over from Sicily when he was 12, stuffed into a cargo container with 18 other desperate souls, and Lucien learned early that legal didn't mean possible. Elena worked at the diner across the street. Night shift, same as him. She'd bring him coffee around 3 in the morning when the cold got brutal, coffee so bad it tasted like burnt dirt, but she'd smile when she handed it over, and somehow that made it better. "You're gonna freeze to death out here," she'd said that first night, watching him wrestle with the transmission in the open bay. "I'm fine." "You're shaking." I said I'm fine. She'd rolled her eyes, pulled off her own jacket, and draped it over his shoulders before walking away. The jacket smelled like cigarette smoke and cheap vanilla perfume. Lucien wore it the rest of the shift. That was Elena. Stubborn kindness. The kind of woman who'd give you her last dollar if you looked hungry, who'd cover someone else's shift if they had a sick kid, who believed the world could be good if enough people tried hard enough. Lucien had fallen in love with her before he even knew what love meant. They'd gotten married at City Hall on a Tuesday afternoon. No family, no party, just a judge who looked bored and a witness they pulled off the street for $20. Elena wore a white dress from Goodwill. Lucien wore the only suit he owned, the one he'd bought for his mother's funeral 2 months earlier. Afterward, they'd gone to that same diner where she worked and split a piece of cherry pie. "We're gonna build something," Lucien had told her, holding her hand across the cracked linoleum table. "I promise you. We're gonna be something." Elena had smiled, squeezed his fingers. "We already are something." He'd meant money, success, a house, cars, things that proved they'd made it. She'd meant them. Lucien opened his eyes. The penthouse swam back into focus. Rain, glass, emptiness. When had he stopped understanding the difference? Sermatse. The phone buzzed again at 4:30 in the morning. This time it wasn't Marcus. "Elena, I got your message." 3 words. No emotion, no exclamation points or question marks, just acknowledgement. Lucien stared at the screen, his pulse suddenly loud in his ears. He should have felt relieved. She'd seen it. The hard part was over. Instead, his hands started shaking. He waited for more. For the second text. The paragraph. The accusations. Elena had never been the type to let things go quietly. When they fought, and they fought, especially these last few years, she didn't hold back. She'd lay into him about the late nights, the missed birthdays, the way he barely looked at their son anymore. She'd cry and yell and throw things, not because she was dramatic, but because she gave a damn. Silence from Elena was wrong. 5 minutes passed, then 10. Lucien typed and deleted 4 different responses before finally settling on something that felt less cowardly than it probably was. Can we talk about this tomorrow? The reply came instantly. There's nothing to talk about. You made your choice. I respect that. His stomach dropped. I respect that. Elena had never been that calm, that measured, that final. Elena, wait. I hope you find what you're looking for, Lucien. I really do. Take care of yourself. Then nothing. No typing indicator. No follow-up. Just silence that felt louder than any argument they'd ever had. Lucien called her, straight to voicemail. He called again. Same thing. Again. By the 6th attempt, his hands were shaking so badly he could barely hold the phone. This was wrong. All of it was wrong. He grabbed his keys, his coat, and headed for the door. He'd drive to the house. Their house. The one in Oak Park with the blue shutters and the crack in the driveway he kept meaning to fix. He'd explain. He'd tell her the truth about Celine, about the loneliness, about how lost he'd been. Elena would be angry, but she'd listen. She always listened. Lucien made it to the elevator before his phone rang. Unknown number. He almost didn't answer, thinking it was Marcus again, or one of the other guys with some crisis that couldn't wait until daylight. But something made him swipe to accept. Mr. Varelli? A woman's voice. Professional. Careful. Who is this? This is Mercy Hospital. I'm calling about Elena Varelli. She's been admitted to the emergency room. The world tilted sideways. What? Your wife collapsed at home approximately 40 minutes ago. A neighbor found her and called an ambulance. She's stable right now, but the doctors need to speak with you immediately. Lucien's mouth went dry. What happened? What's wrong with her? I can't discuss details over the phone, Mr. Varelli, but you should come as soon as possible. The line went dead. For 5 seconds, Lucien just stood there in the hallway, phone pressed to his ear, trying to make his brain work. Collapsed. Emergency room. Stable. The words floated around him like debris from an explosion he couldn't quite process. Then instinct kicked in. He ran. The Ferrari took corners like it was trying to kill him. Lucien blew through 3 red lights getting across town, his hands locked on the steering wheel, rain hammering the windshield faster than the wipers could clear it. His phone kept buzzing in the cup holder. Marcus, Vincent, Sal, everyone wanting something, everyone needing the boss to fix their problems. He ignored all of it. Mercy Hospital loomed ahead, its emergency room entrance glowing harsh white in the pre-dawn darkness. Lucien ditched the car in the ambulance bay, not caring, not thinking, just moving. A security guard yelled something about parking. Lucien kept walking. The automatic doors swallowed him into fluorescent hell. Elena Varelli, he said to the first nurse he saw. My wife. Where is she? The woman behind the desk looked up, her expression shifting from annoyed to cautious the second she registered who was standing in front of her. Everyone in Chicago knew Lucien Varelli's face. The news loved him. The cops hated him. The gossip columns couldn't get enough. Room 347, she said quietly. 3rd floor. But sir, you need to... Lucien was already moving toward the elevators. He took the stairs instead, hitting them 2 at a time, his lungs burning by the 2nd flight. 3rd floor. Room 347. The numbers blurred together until he was standing in front of a door with a small window, staring through glass at a bed surrounded by machines. Elena looked impossibly small. That was the first thing that hit him. Elena, who'd always seemed so solid, so present, so alive, looked like something fragile propped up by wires and tubes. An oxygen mask covered her face. An IV dripped clear fluid into her left arm. Monitors beeped rhythms Lucien didn't understand. A doctor appeared beside him. Young guy, early 30s, with tired eyes and the kind of posture that suggested he'd been on shift too long. Mr. Varelli? Lucien couldn't speak. He just nodded. I'm Dr. Rahman. Your wife is resting comfortably right now, but we need to talk about her condition. What happened? The words scraped out of Lucien's throat like gravel. Dr. Rahman glanced at the clipboard in his hands, then back at Lucien. When was the last time you saw your wife? I don't know. 3 days ago? 4? What is that? Did she seem ill? Tired? Complain about any symptoms? No, maybe. I don't, Lucian stopped, frustration and fear colliding. What the hell is wrong with her? The doctor's expression shifted into something careful, something that doctors probably practiced in medical school for moments like this. Your wife has stage 3 lung cancer, Mr. Varelli. She's been undergoing treatment for approximately 6 months. The floor disappeared. 6 months. Elena had cancer for 6 months, and he didn't know. That's impossible, Lucian heard himself say. She would have told me. She wouldn't. According to her charts, she specifically requested that you not be informed. Dr. Rahman's voice stayed neutral, professional, but judgment leaked through anyway. She didn't want to burden anyone with her illness while she was still functional. Burden. That word again. The same one Celine had thrown at him hours ago, except now it meant something completely different. Now it meant Elena had been dying alone while Lucian was out building kingdoms and sleeping with women who didn't matter. The collapse tonight was triggered by acute stress, the doctor continued. Her body is already compromised. The emotional trauma from whatever happened this evening exacerbated her condition significantly. Emotional trauma. The text message. 23 words sent from another woman's bed. Lucien's knees gave out. He caught himself against the wall, barely, his vision swimming. The doctor was still talking, something about treatment options and prognosis and quality of life. But Lucien couldn't hear it anymore. All he could hear was his own pulse hammering in his ears and Elena's voice from years ago, from their wedding day, whispering across cheap diner pie. We already are something. Can I see her? Lucien's voice came out broken. Dr. Rahman hesitated. She's sedated right now. She won't be able to respond. I don't care. Can I see her? The doctor studied him for a long moment, then stepped aside. Lucian pushed through the door into a room that smelled like disinfectant and failure. Elena's chest rose and fell beneath a thin hospital blanket. The oxygen mask fogged with each breath. Her face looked gray in the harsh lighting, shadows pooling under her eyes, her cheekbones sharper than he remembered. How had he not noticed? How had he looked at this woman, the woman who'd given him everything, who'd believed in him when he was nothing, and not seen that she was disappearing? Because he hadn't been looking. That was the truth that hit him now, standing beside her bed with machines breathing beside her. He hadn't looked at Elena, really looked at her, in years. She'd become background noise. The person who kept the house running, who raised their son, who existed in the spaces between his important meetings and dangerous deals. She'd become invisible while he was busy being visible. Lucien reached for her hand. It felt cold. Too cold. I'm sorry, he whispered. God, Elena, I'm so sorry. The machines beeped their mechanical rhythm. Rain hammered against the window, and somewhere in the building, a PA system announced a code blue in a voice too calm for the emergency it described. Lucian lowered his forehead to Elena's hand and stayed there, frozen, while the reality of what he'd done finally caught up with him. He'd spent 15 years building an empire, and he'd lost everything that actually mattered in a single night. The sun came up gray and reluctant. Lucien sat in the same position he'd been in for 3 hours, Elena's hand still clasped in both of his back screaming from the awkward angle of the chair. He hadn't moved, couldn't move. As if staying still might somehow reverse time, take back the message, undo the damage. A nurse came in around 7 to check vitals. She didn't say anything to him, just did her job with practiced efficiency, and left. Lucien appreciated the silence. He didn't have words right now anyway. His phone had died somewhere around dawn. Good. Let Marcus handle the shipment. Let Vincent deal with the feds. Let the whole empire burn if it wanted to. None of it mattered anymore. Elena stirred around 8. It started with her fingers twitching in his grip, then her eyes moving beneath closed lids, then a small sound escaping from behind the oxygen mask. Lucien sat up straighter, his heart suddenly racing. Elena? Her eyes opened slowly, unfocused at first, blinking against the harsh overhead lights. It took a moment for her gaze to find him. When it did, something flickered across her face. Not anger, not relief. Resignation. The nurse must have heard the change in the monitors because she reappeared almost immediately, checking Elena's vitals, adjusting the IV, asking questions in a calm, professional voice. Elena nodded weakly to most of them, her eyes never leaving Lucien's face. I'll give you two a few minutes, the nurse said finally, and left them alone. Silence filled the room like water. Lucien opened his mouth, closed it, tried again. Elena, You got my text, she said. Her voice came out rough, strained from the oxygen mask, but clear, always clear. I got it. Then the hospital called and he stopped, swallowed hard. Why didn't you tell me? Tell you what? The cancer, the treatment, any of it. Elena closed her eyes briefly. When she opened them again, they were wet. You were busy. 2 words. They hit harder than accusations would have. That's not... Lucien's throat closed up. You should have told me anyway. I'm your husband. I had a right to know. Rights? Elena's laugh came out bitter, painful. You want to talk about rights? When's the last time you came home for dinner, Lucien? When's the last time you asked about my day? When's the last time you looked at me like I was anything other than an obligation? He had no answer for that. I didn't tell you because I knew what would happen, Elena continued, her voice getting stronger even as tears slid down her temples. You'd feel guilty. You'd throw money at it. You'd hire the best doctors and the best hospitals, and you'd tell yourself that meant you were taking care of me. But you wouldn't actually be there. You'd still choose your meetings over my chemo appointments. You'd still forget to call. You'd still disappear into whatever world you've built where I don't exist. That's not fair, isn't it? She turned her head to look at him fully. When's our son's birthday, Lucien? The question landed like a punch. Lucien's mind went blank. He knew it. Of course he knew it. September something, or was it October? Elena saw the answer on his face. Fresh tears spilled over. You don't even know, she whispered. You don't know when your own son was born. October 9th, Lucien said suddenly, the date surfacing from wherever he'd buried it. October 9th, he's 9 years old. His name is Marco. Elena's voice cracked. And you missed his last 3 birthdays. The truth of it crushed him. Marco, his son, 9 years old, brown hair like his mother, quiet kid, good at school, or at least Elena said so in the texts Lucien barely read. When was the last time he'd actually talked to his own son? Really talked, not just a distracted "how was school" while checking his phone. I can fix this, Lucien said desperately. Elena, I swear to God, I can fix all of it. I'll step back from the business. I'll be home more. You sent me a breakup text last night. The words stopped him cold. While I was sitting in our kitchen, Elena continued quietly, trying to figure out how to tell our son that his mother is dying. While I was alone in the house you bought but never visit, you sent me a text message ending our marriage. I was drunk. I wasn't thinking. Celine, I don't want to hear about Celine. Elena's voice hardened. I don't want to hear excuses. I just want you to understand something, Lucien. Are you listening? He nodded, unable to speak. I have loved you since we were kids. Since you were just some angry boy working on cars and dreaming about being important. I loved you through the poverty, through the fear, through every night you came home with blood on your hands and lies on your tongue. I gave you everything I had, my time, my trust, my life. And you, her voice broke. You gave me back a text message. Lucien felt something inside him shatter. Not break. Shatter. Like glass hitting concrete, 1,000 pieces scattering too far to ever collect. I'm dying, Lucien. Elena said it simply, factually. The doctors give me maybe 6 months if I'm lucky, 3 if I'm not, and I don't want to spend whatever time I have left waiting for you to become the man you used to be, because I don't think that man exists anymore. He does. Lucien gripped her hand tighter, desperate. He's right here. I'm right here. No. Elena pulled her hand away. You're somewhere else. You've been somewhere else for years, and I'm too tired to keep chasing you. The machines beeped. The rain had stopped outside, leaving Chicago washed clean and indifferent. And in a hospital room that smelled like ending things, Lucien Varelli finally understood what power actually cost. Everything. He'd traded everything for an empire that meant nothing without her. What do you want me to do? He asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Elena looked at him for a long moment. When she spoke, her words were so quiet he almost missed them. I want you to let me go. Lucien left the hospital before noon with nothing but the clothes on his back and a hollow feeling where his chest used to be. The Ferrari sat in the ambulance bay exactly where he'd abandoned it, accumulating parking tickets like badges of insignificance. 3 of them tucked under the wiper blade, bright orange against wet black paint. Lucien pulled them off without reading them and let them scatter across the pavement. Money didn't fix anything anymore. He'd learned that today. His phone had enough battery left for 1 message when he plugged it into the car charger. 17 missed calls, 42 texts, all of them from people who needed something from the king of Chicago's underworld. None of them mattered, except one. "Celine, where are you? We need to talk about last night. Call me." Lucien stared at the screen until it blurred. Last night felt like it had happened in another lifetime, to another man. The version of himself who'd stood in that penthouse drinking expensive scotch and making irreversible mistakes seemed like a stranger now. A fool, a child playing at being powerful while the real world burned down around him. He deleted the message without responding. The drive back to Oak Park took 40 minutes through midday traffic. Lucien drove on autopilot, his mind stuck in that hospital room, replaying Elena's words on an endless loop. "I want you to let me go." Simple, final, the kind of sentence that destroyed everything it touched. The house appeared through the drizzle exactly as he remembered it from 4 days ago, when he'd stopped by to grab some documents from his office. Blue shutters, crack in the driveway, basketball hoop Marco had begged for 3 Christmases ago, net already fraying from neglect. The lawn needed mowing. The mailbox hung crooked from where someone had clipped it backing out. Home. Except it had never really been his home, had it? This was Elena's house. Elena's life. The place where she raised their son alone while Lucien played king in his glass tower downtown. He sat in the driveway for 10 minutes before finally killing the engine. The front door wasn't locked. Elena never locked it during the day, said it made her feel trapped. Lucien stepped inside and the smell hit him immediately. Coffee, laundry detergent, something sweet baking in the oven on a timer. Life. Normal life. The kind that existed in houses where people actually lived instead of just sleeping between emergencies. "Hello?" The voice came from upstairs. Young, uncertain. Marco. Lucien's throat closed up. "It's me," he managed. "It's your dad." Footsteps on the stairs. Then his son appeared on the landing, 9 years old and already too serious for his age. Brown hair falling across his forehead, exactly like Elena's. Gray eyes that studied Lucien with the wariness of someone who'd learned not to expect much. "Mom's not here," Marco said. "I know. She's at the hospital." Something flickered across the kid's face. "Is she okay?" The question destroyed Lucien. "Yeah, buddy, she's okay." Marco didn't move, just stood there on the stairs looking at his father like he was trying to solve a puzzle. "Are you staying?" "For a little while." "How long is a little while?" Fair question. Lucien had promised a little while before and disappeared for weeks. "I don't know yet. Can I come up?" Marco shrugged, which Lucien took as permission. He climbed the stairs slowly, each step feeling heavier than the last. The second floor looked exactly like he remembered. Family photos on the walls, mostly of Elena and Marco, a few of all 3 of them from years ago when Lucien still showed up for things. The carpet needed replacing. The paint had started peeling near the window frame. He'd given Elena money to fix all of it. Thousands of dollars. Apparently she'd spent it on something else. Or maybe she'd just stopped asking because she knew he didn't actually care about the answers. "What are you doing home from school?" Lucien asked. "Teacher work day." Marco walked back to his room and Lucien followed. The kid's bedroom was small but clean, bed made, books stacked neatly on the shelf, homework spread across a desk by the window. A poster of some basketball player Lucien didn't recognize hung above the bed. Science fair ribbon pinned to the corkboard. Participation trophy from soccer league. Lucien had missed all of it. "You hungry?" he asked, because he didn't know what else to say. "I already ate." "Right. Okay." Silence filled the room like smoke. Marco sat at his desk and picked up a pencil, went back to whatever homework he'd been doing. Math problems. Long division. Lucien watched his son work, the way the kid's tongue stuck out slightly when he concentrated. The way his handwriting looked exactly like Elena's used to before she learned to write faster. "Your mom's sick," Lucian said finally. The pencil stopped moving. Marco didn't look up. "I know. She told you?" "No, but I'm not stupid." Now the kid did look at him, and the anger in those gray eyes could have cut glass. "She's been tired all the time. She doesn't eat much anymore. She cries when she thinks I'm asleep. And you haven't been around, so obviously something bad's happening." The logic landed like an uppercut. Out of the mouths of children came truths adults spent years avoiding. "I should have been here," Lucian said quietly. Yeah. No argument, no comfort, just agreement stated as fact. Marco went back to his math problems, like his father was already gone again. Lucian stood there feeling useless, watching his son solve problems in a house that didn't need him, and understood for the first time why Elena had stopped fighting for their marriage. You couldn't miss what had never really been there. His phone buzzed. Marcus again. "Boss, seriously, I need you to call me. The situation with the shipment is getting worse. Feds are threatening seizure. We need to move product tonight, or we're looking at losses in the 7 figures. 7 figures. Last week, that would have sent Lucian into crisis mode. Right now, all he felt was exhausted. "I need to make a call," he told Marco. The kid didn't respond, just kept working on his math like Lucian had already left the room. Mig. Lucien stood in the backyard under gray sky, phone pressed to his ear, listening to Marcus explain a problem that used to matter. "The container's flagged," Marcus was saying, his voice tight with stress. "Customs is holding it at the port. They're saying random inspection, but we both know what that means. Someone talked." "Who?" "I don't know. Could be anyone. Could be the new driver. Could be someone on the dock crew. Could be—" "Figure it out." "Boss, if they open that container, then they open it. Move the operation through the alternate route. Use the truck network instead of the port. It'll take longer, but it's clean." Silence on the other end. Then, "You feeling okay? You sound weird." "I'm fine. Just handle it." "Lucien, man, this is a $12 million shipment. If we lose it, we won't lose it. Reroute through Gary, Indiana. Use the warehouse we acquired last month. Split the load into smaller vehicles and move it in pieces. You've done this before." "That'll take weeks." "Then it takes weeks." More silence. Lucian could practically hear Marcus trying to figure out what was wrong with his boss. Finally, "Where are you right now?" "Home." "Your home or—" "My actual home. With my wife and kid." The pause that followed lasted long enough for Lucien to count his own heartbeats. 6 of them before Marcus spoke again, his voice careful now. "Elena's sick, isn't she? The hospital called you." Word traveled fast in their world. "Yeah. How bad?" "Bad enough." "Shit. Boss, I'm sorry. If you need, I need you to handle the shipment without me. Can you do that or not?" "Yeah, of course, yeah." "Good. Don't call me unless someone's dying." Lucian hung up before Marcus could respond. He stood there in the backyard looking at the fence that needed painting and the grass that needed cutting and the swing set Marco had outgrown, but Elena kept anyway because she liked the memories. This place was falling apart, the same way their marriage had, slowly, quietly, while everyone pretended not to notice. The back door opened. Marco stood there holding something. "Mom called," the kid said. Lucien's pulse spiked. "When?" "Just now. On the house phone. She said to tell you she's being discharged tomorrow morning and she needs you to pick her up at 10. "She's coming home?" That's what discharge means. Smart kid. Too smart. Lucien walked toward the door. "What else did she say?" Marco handed him a piece of paper with Elena's handwriting on it. A list. Of course it was a list. Elena made lists for everything, grocery shopping, bills to pay, things she needed Lucien to fix around the house that he never got around to fixing. This list was different. Marco's school schedule, attached to fridge. His medication, allergy, is in bathroom cabinet, 1 pill each morning. He likes scrambled eggs, but not fried baseball practice. Tuesdays and Thursdays, 4 p.m. at Jefferson Park. Math tutor comes Wednesday afternoons. Bedtime is 9 p.m. on school nights, 10 p.m. on weekends. He's been having nightmares about something at school, but won't tell me what. Please actually listen when he talks. The last line hit different than the others. Not an instruction, a plea. She thinks I don't know how to take care of you, Lucienne said quietly. Marco shrugged. Do you? Honest question, devastating answer. I'm going to try. People say that a lot. I know. Trying isn't the same as doing. I know that too. The kid looked at him for a long moment, those gray eyes Elena had given him searching for something Lucian wasn't sure he still had. Finally, Marco said, I like my eggs scrambled with cheese, and I'm not bad at math. The tutor just makes Mom feel better. And the nightmares aren't about school. What are they about? You leaving and not coming back. The words hung in the wet air between them like smoke. Lucian opened his mouth, but nothing came out. What do you say to your 9-year-old son when he tells you he has nightmares about your absence? Sorry, didn't cover it. Apologies meant nothing against years of proof. I'm not leaving, Lucian finally managed. Okay. I mean it. People say that a lot too. Then Marco went back inside, leaving his father standing in the rain that had started falling again, holding a list of instructions for how to be a parent to a child he barely knew. Back. Celine showed up at 7 that evening. Lucienne was in the kitchen trying to figure out how to make scrambled eggs with cheese when the doorbell rang. Marco had already eaten cereal because Lucien's first attempt at cooking had produced something that looked like rubber and was upstairs doing homework, or avoiding his father. Probably both. The doorbell rang again, insistent. Lucienne already knew who it was before he opened the door. Some instinct, maybe, or just the recognition of bad timing. Celine stood on the porch in designer jeans and a leather jacket that cost more than most people's monthly rent. Her makeup was perfect. Her hair was perfect. Everything about her was assembled for maximum impact. So this is where you've been hiding, she said. I'm not hiding. Really? Because you've ignored 14 texts and 6 calls. That feels like hiding. I've been busy. Busy. She laughed, but there was no humor in it. You've been busy for 18 hours in Oak Park? Doing what? Exactly. Lucienne didn't move from the doorway. Didn't invite her in. How did you know I was here? I have access to your phone's location, remember? You gave me that after we started. She paused, glanced past him into the house. Can we talk inside? Or are you going to make me have this conversation on your doorstep? Here's fine. Her expression hardened. What's going on, Lucian? Elena's sick. I know. You said that this morning in your text. I didn't send you a text this morning. Right, sorry. You didn't send me anything this morning, which is exactly my point. We finally took the step we've been talking about for months, and now you're ghosting me? Celine? No. Don't Celine me. We did this together. You sent that message last night because you wanted to, because you wanted her gone and me here. Don't pretend like I forced you into anything. She was right, which made it worse. Lucian had wanted all of it last night. The freedom, the excitement, the escape from guilt and responsibility. He'd wanted Celine's version of life where power meant fun instead of sacrifice. 24 hours ago, a lifetime ago. Things have changed, he said. What things? Elena has cancer, stage 3. She's been sick for months and I didn't know because I was too busy with... He stopped himself. It doesn't matter, she's dying. That changes things. Celine stared at him like he'd started speaking another language. So what, you're going to stay here and play house while she trailed off, apparently realizing how terrible the rest of that sentence sounded. Yeah, I am. For how long? I don't know. Lucienne, this is insane. You can't just... I sent her a message ending our marriage while she was sitting in our kitchen trying to figure out how to tell our son she's dying. The words came out raw. She collapsed reading that message. I put my wife in the hospital because I was too much of a coward to end things face to face. You're not a coward. You were trapped in a dead marriage with a woman who didn't understand you. We talked about this. You said you felt like you were drowning. I say a lot of things. Meaning what? Lucienne met her eyes. Meaning maybe I was wrong. The silence that followed felt dangerous. Celine's jaw tightened, her perfectly manicured hands curling into fists at her sides. When she spoke again, her voice had dropped into a register Lucian recognized, the one she used when she was genuinely angry instead of just performing. You're not doing this. You're not using her illness as an excuse to run back to mommy and pretend the last 6 months didn't happen. I'm not pretending anything. Then what are you doing? Explain it to me. Because from where I'm standing, you spent half a year telling me how much you hated your life, how trapped you felt, how Elena didn't see you anymore. And now because she's sick, you're going to sacrifice everything we built together? We didn't build anything. We had an affair. The words landed like a slap. Celine actually took a step back, her face going white. That's what this was to you? An affair? What else would you call it? I call it two people finding each other when they needed it most. I call it love. Celine, don't. She held up a hand. Don't you dare stand there and tell me you didn't feel what I felt. Don't you dare pretend those nights meant nothing. They meant something, but they weren't love. Then what was it? Lucien thought about the penthouse, the champagne, the expensive dinners and hotel rooms where nobody knew their names. The way Celine made him feel powerful and desired and free from the weight of being responsible for anything real. Escape, he said quietly. It was escape. Celine's laugh came out bitter and sharp. Wow, okay. That's wow. I'm sorry. No, you're not. You're just feeling guilty because your wife is sick and you finally have to face what you've been running from. But guilt fades, Lucien. Give it a few weeks, a few months, and you'll remember why you left her in the first place. You'll remember what it felt like to be with me instead of stuck in this— She gestured at the house with disgust. This prison pretending to be a home. Get out. The words came out cold. Final. Lucien watched something change in Celine's expression, watched the anger shift into calculation. Fine, she said. I'll go, but you should know something before I do. What? I'm pregnant. The world stopped. Lucien stared at her, trying to make the words make sense. Pregnant. Celine was pregnant. You're lying. I wish I was. She pulled something from her purse, a pharmacy receipt, a picture of what looked like a pregnancy test. Found out yesterday. Was going to tell you last night as a celebration, but then you got all weird about sending that text and, well, timing. Lucien's mind raced. Pregnant. Celine was pregnant with his child. Another child. A child conceived in hotel rooms and lies while his wife was dying and his son was having nightmares about abandonment. How far along? 6 weeks, maybe 7. The doctor can tell me more when I make an appointment. She paused. If I make an appointment. The implication hung heavy between them. Lucien felt sick. I need to think, he said. About what? Whether you want this baby or not. About everything. Celine's expression hardened into something cruel. You have 48 hours, then I'm making decisions without you. And Lucien, if you choose her over me, if you choose that dying marriage over our future, I will make sure everyone knows exactly what kind of man you really are. The press, your associates, her, everyone. Are you threatening me? I'm promising you, 48 hours. Choose wisely. She turned and walked back to her car, a Mercedes he'd bought her 3 months ago, and drove away, leaving Lucien standing on his own porch feeling like the ground had opened beneath his feet. Pregnant. Celine was pregnant. And upstairs his son was doing homework, not knowing his father's world had just imploded twice in 24 hours. Come. Lucien didn't sleep that night. He lay on the couch in the living room staring at ceiling shadows while the house settled around him with sounds he'd forgotten. The refrigerator humming, pipes creaking, wind against windows. Normal sounds. The kind you only noticed when you'd been gone long enough to forget what quiet felt like. Pregnant. The word kept circling through his mind like a vulture. He tried to do math. 6 or 7 weeks meant it happened around the new year. That weekend they'd gone to that resort in Lake Geneva, the one with the private cabin and the hot tub and too much wine. He'd told Elena he was at a business conference. She'd probably known he was lying. God, what had he become? Lucien's phone buzzed around 3 in the morning. He'd turned off notifications from everyone except 2 numbers. Marco's cell phone, which the kid barely used, and the hospital. It was the hospital. His heart stopped before he even read the message. Elena's condition has stabilized. Discharge still scheduled for 10 a.m. Please arrive on time as she will need assistance with mobility. Relief flooded through him, followed immediately by shame. He'd been lying here worried about Celine's pregnancy while Elena was alone in a hospital bed fighting for every breath. Priorities. He needed to figure out his priorities. Lucien stood and walked upstairs as quietly as possible. Marco's door was closed. Lucien pushed it open slowly, just enough to see inside. The kid was asleep, tangled in blankets, his face peaceful in a way it never was during the day. A stuffed animal Lucien didn't recognize tucked under one arm. Nightlight glowing near the closet. 9 years old. Lucien had missed 9 years of this. 9 birthdays. 9 first days of school. 9 Christmases and Halloween costumes and summer vacations. All of it gone while he was building an empire that meant nothing compared to the small human breathing softly in that twin bed. And now there might be another child. Another life Lucien would be responsible for failing. He closed the door and went back downstairs. In the kitchen, he found Elena's list still sitting on the counter. Please actually listen when he talks. Such a simple request. Such an impossible indictment of everything Lucien had become. His phone buzzed again. Not the hospital this time. Marcus. Shipment rerouted successfully. No losses. Feds never opened the container. False alarm. Good news, supposedly. $12 million saved. The empire intact. Lucien deleted the message without responding. He spent the rest of the night sitting at the kitchen table looking at family photos Elena had arranged on the wall. Most of them old. The 3 of them at Marco's baptism. First birthday party. Trip to the zoo when the kid was maybe 4. A few recent ones scattered in. But Lucien noticed he was in fewer and fewer of them as the years progressed. Disappearing. He'd been disappearing from his own family for years and never noticed until it was too late. The sun came up slow and reluctant. Lucien made coffee, burned toast, threw it away, and tried again. By 7, Marco was awake, appearing in the kitchen doorway looking suspicious. "You're still here," the kid said. "I told you I would be." "Yeah, but—" Marco stopped himself, shrugged instead. "But I usually lie." The kid didn't argue, just got himself a bowl from the cabinet and poured cereal. Lucky Charms. Elena always bought the healthy stuff. Whole grain, low sugar. Apparently when Lucien wasn't around, different rules applied. "We're picking up your mom at 10, Lucien said. "You need to get ready for school or— Teacher workday, remember? I told you yesterday." Right, teacher workday. Lucien had already forgotten. They ate breakfast in silence. The kind that wasn't quite comfortable, but wasn't hostile either. Marco kept glancing at him like he was waiting for his father to disappear, to suddenly remember he had somewhere more important to be. At 8:30, Lucien's phone rang. Not a text this time. An actual call. Vincent. Lucien almost didn't answer, but Vincent only called for emergencies, and some habits died hard. "What?" "We have a problem." Vincent's voice was tight. "Big problem. I told Marcus I'm not available. This isn't about the shipment. This is about Sal." Sal. Salvatore Russo. One of Lucien's oldest associates, brought in during the early days when the organization was still small enough to operate out of a warehouse in Pilsen. Loyal. Brutal when necessary. The kind of man you wanted on your side in a war. "What about him?" "He's dead." The kitchen tilted. "What?" "Found him this morning in his car. 2 shots to the head. Professional hit." "Lucien, this wasn't random. Someone's sending a message." Marco looked up from his cereal, those gray eyes suddenly alert. Lucien turned away, walking toward the living room for privacy. "Who?" "We don't know yet. Could be the Italians, could be the Mexicans, could be someone new trying to make a move while you're distracted, while you're playing house, while you're not being the king they need you to be." "Where's the body?" "County morgue by now. Cops are calling it gang violence." "They're not wrong." Lucien closed his eyes. Sal. Jesus, the man had 3 kids, a wife. He'd been at Lucien's wedding, back when everything was different. Who found him? His youngest. Kid was supposed to meet him for breakfast. Found his father slumped over the steering wheel in front of the restaurant. His youngest. Lucien thought about Marco upstairs. Thought about that kid finding his father like that. Some horrors you never recovered from. "I need you to come in," Vincent said. "This is a declaration of war. We need to respond immediately or everyone's going to think we're weak." "I can't." "Lucien, I said I can't. Elena gets discharged in 90 minutes. I need to be there. Sal is dead. Your wife is sick. I get that. I do. But Sal is dead and someone killed him to get to you. This is bigger than—" "Don't." Lucian's voice came out dangerous. "Don't finish that sentence." Silence on the line, then, "What do you want me to do?" "Secure Sal's family, full protection. Make sure his wife and kids have everything they need. Then find out who did this. And when I find them?" "Nothing. Not yet. Just find them. I'll deal with it when I get back." "When is that?" "Good question. I don't know." "Boss, we can't just sit on this. Every hour we don't respond makes us look weaker. The vultures are already circling. If we don't, handle it, Vincent. That's what I pay you for." Lucien hung up before Vincent could argue further. He stood there in his living room, his actual living room, not the penthouse, not the office, but the place where his wife and son lived, and tried to process the fact that one of his oldest friends was dead. Killed because of him. Because being Lucien Virelli meant painting targets on everyone you cared about. "Who died?" Marco's voice came from behind him. Lucien turned. The kid stood in the doorway looking older than 9, the kind of old that came from hearing things children shouldn't have to hear. "Nobody you know." "But somebody." "Yeah, somebody." Marco nodded like this was normal, like people dying was just part of life when your father was who Lucien was. Maybe for this kid it was normal. Maybe violence and death and whispered phone calls were as ordinary as soccer practice and math homework. The realization made Lucien sick. "I'm sorry," he said. "For what?" "For everything. For all of it. For being the kind of father who made death normal. For bringing this into your life." Marco just looked at him. "It's always been in my life. You just weren't here to see it." Then the kid walked back to the kitchen, leaving Lucien alone with the truth that children always knew more than adults wanted them to. Tips. They picked up Elena at exactly 10 o'clock. Lucien drove. Marco sat in the back. Nobody talked during the 20-minute drive to Mercy Hospital. The radio played something soft and forgettable. Rain had started again, turning Chicago gray and endless. Elena was waiting in a wheelchair by the entrance when they pulled up. A nurse stood beside her holding discharge papers and a plastic bag of medications. Elena looked smaller than she had yesterday, if that was possible. Fragile. The kind of fragile that made Lucien afraid to touch her. He parked and got out. The nurse recognized him immediately, most people in Chicago did, and her expression shifted into professional neutrality. The kind that said, "I know who you are and I don't approve, but I'm going to do my job anyway." "Mrs. Virelli is ready to go home," the nurse said, handing Lucien the medication bag. "These are her prescriptions. Instructions are inside. She has a follow-up appointment with Dr. Rahman in 3 days. Don't miss it." A command, not a suggestion. Lucien took the bag. Marco had gotten out of the car and now stood beside the wheelchair looking at his mother with an expression Lucien couldn't read. Elena smiled at him, reached up to touch his face. "Hi, baby." "Hi, Mom." "You okay?" "Yeah, are you?" "I'm okay." They were both lying and they both knew it, but some lies were necessary. Lucien helped Elena out of the wheelchair and into the passenger seat. She moved carefully, wincing with each breath. The nurse watched the whole process like she was evaluating his competence. Apparently he passed because she handed him the discharge papers without comment and walked back inside. The drive home was quieter than the drive there. Elena stared out the window. Marco played some game on his phone in the back. Lucien gripped the steering wheel and tried to think of something to say that didn't sound empty. "Thank you for picking me up," Elena said finally. "You don't need to thank me." "I know, but I am anyway." More silence. Then, "How are you feeling?" "Tired, sore, like I got hit by a truck." She paused. "How's Marco?" "He's good. We had breakfast together. Cereal. Nutritious. He likes Lucky Charms." "I know what he likes." The words weren't accusatory, just factual, but they landed heavy anyway. They pulled into the driveway 20 minutes later. Lucien helped Elena inside while Marco grabbed the medication bag. The house felt different with all 3 of them in it. Not better, Exactly. Just different. Fuller. Like a photograph that had been missing people was suddenly complete again. Elena went straight to the couch and lowered herself down carefully. Marco brought her a blanket without being asked. Muscle memory. The kid had been taking care of his mother long before Lucian showed up. I need to make some calls, Elena said, reaching for her phone. For what? Work. I was supposed to be at the library this morning, and someone needs to call Marco's school about… I'll handle it. Lucian sat down across from her. Whatever needs to be done, I'll handle it. You need to rest. Elena looked at him like she was trying to figure out if he was serious. You don't know how to handle any of it. Then tell me. Make another list. I'll follow it. Something shifted in her expression. Not trust. Not yet. But maybe the beginning of something that could become trust if Lucian didn't destroy it first. Okay, she said quietly. Okay. Marco had disappeared upstairs. Smart kid. He knew when adults needed to talk. Lucien sat forward, elbows on his knees. I need to tell you something. About last night? About all of it. The affair. Why I… He stopped, started over. I've been lying to you for a long time. About where I've been, who I've been with, what I've been doing. I know. You know? Lucien, I'm not stupid. You smell like someone else's perfume half the time you come home. You delete messages. You lie about meetings. I've known for months. The admission hit like a fist. Then why didn't you say anything? What was I supposed to say? You were already gone. Saying it out loud wouldn't have brought you back. Fair. God, it was fair. Her name is Celine, Lucian said. We've been seeing each other since… It doesn't matter. It's over now. I ended it last night. Did you? Not a question, an observation. Elena knew him too well. I'm trying to end it. She's making it complicated. Women usually do when you break their hearts. I didn't… Lucien stopped. Maybe he had. Maybe Celine loved him, or thought she did, or loved the idea of him enough that it amounted to the same thing. There's more. Elena closed her eyes briefly. Of course there is. She's pregnant. The silence that followed felt like falling. Elena didn't move, didn't react, just sat there with her eyes closed and her hands folded in her lap like she was praying, except Lucian knew she'd stopped praying years ago when the world proved it didn't listen. How far along? Her voice came out flat. 6 or 7 weeks? And you believe her? I don't know. Maybe. She showed me a test. Tests can be faked. I know. More silence. Then Elena opened her eyes and looked at him with an expression that wasn't quite anger and wasn't quite pain. Something worse. Resignation. What do you want me to say, Lucien? I don't know. Do you want my permission, my blessing? Do you want me to tell you it's okay to have a child with another woman while your wife is dying? No, I needed you to know. Why? So you can feel less guilty? So I can absolve you? She laughed, and it sounded like breaking. I can't give you that. I don't have the energy for it. Elena, is there anything else? Any other confessions you want to get off your chest while we're being honest? Lucien thought about Sal, about the war that might be starting, about the empire that was already cracking without him there to hold it together. No, he lied. Nothing else. Elena studied his face for a long moment. Then she nodded. I'm going to rest now. Can you make sure Marco eats something that isn't cereal for lunch? Yeah, of course. She stood slowly, using the arm of the couch for support. Lucian moved to help her, but she waved him off. I can walk to my own bedroom. He watched her climb the stairs one careful step at a time, watched her disappear into the master bedroom, and close the door with a soft click that sounded like finality. Then Lucien sat alone in the living room of a house that didn't feel like home, listening to the rain hammer against windows, and wondered how many more lies he could tell before everything collapsed completely. His phone buzzed. Vincent again. We found who killed Sal, the Volkov brothers, Russians. They're making a move on the North Side territory. This is war, boss. We need you. Lucian stared at the message. The Volkov brothers. Aggressive. Ambitious. Dangerous. The kind of people who didn't make moves unless they thought they could win. And right now, with Lucian absent, maybe they could. He typed a response, deleted it, typed another. Give me 24 hours. We don't have 24 hours. Then make them. I'll be there tomorrow. Don't do anything stupid until then. Lucian sent the message and turned off his phone before Vincent could argue. Upstairs, he heard Elena crying through the closed bedroom door. Soft, trying to be quiet so Marco wouldn't hear. And Lucian sat there in the wreckage of everything he'd built. 2 families, 2 lives, 2 worlds that couldn't coexist, and finally understood what it meant to have no way back and no way forward. Just the terrible middle where choices had to be made and every option led to someone he loved getting hurt. Lucian woke up on the couch at 4 in the morning to the sound of his phone vibrating against the coffee table. Not buzzing, vibrating, over and over. The kind of insistent rhythm that meant someone needed him badly enough to keep calling until he answered. He'd turned it off last night. Apparently it had turned itself back on, or someone had figured out how to override his settings. In his world, both were possible. The screen showed Marcus. 7th call in the last 10 minutes, according to the log. Lucien answered without sitting up. What? Thank God. Boss, where have you been? I've been trying to reach you for hours. Sleeping. What's the emergency? Vincent's been shot. The words cut through the fog in Lucien's brain like a knife. He sat up, suddenly awake, heart hammering. What? About 3 hours ago. He was leaving the warehouse on Ashland and someone opened up on his car, took 4 rounds, 2 in the chest, 1 in the shoulder, 1 through his neck. Lucien's mouth went dry. Is he alive? Barely. He's at county in critical condition. Doctors are saying the next few hours will decide it. Marcus paused. The Volkovs are claiming responsibility. They left a message. What message? They spray-painted it on the warehouse door. Tell Varelli we're coming for everything. Boss, this is a full declaration. They hit Sal yesterday, Vincent today. They're systematically taking out our leadership. Lucian stood, pacing the dark living room. His mind raced through scenarios, calculating moves and countermoves the way he'd done 1,000 times before. The Volkov brothers weren't subtle. If they were making this big a statement, they had something backing them. Money, muscle, political protection. You didn't declare war on Lucian Varelli unless you thought you could win. Where's the rest of the crew? Scattered. Half of them are in hiding, the other half want blood. Nobody knows what to do because nobody knows where you are or what you want us to do. Lucian, I need orders, clear orders, right now. Clear orders, simple request, impossible situation. Lucian looked toward the stairs. Somewhere up there, Elena was sleeping, her damaged lungs struggling with each breath. Marco was sleeping, probably having those nightmares about his father leaving. 2 people who needed him here, in this house, being someone other than the man who gave orders that got people killed. But Vincent was dying. Sal was already dead. And if Lucian didn't respond now, the Volkovs would interpret his absence as weakness. They'd push harder, kill more people, take more territory. And eventually they'd come here, to this house, with blue shutters and a cracked driveway, and they'd finish what they started. Lock down all the primary locations, Lucien said finally. Move product out of the north side warehouses. Redistribute it to the secondary sites in Indiana. Pull everyone back to defensive positions. That's retreat. That's strategy. Let them think they're winning. I'll handle the rest when I get there. When is that? Lucien closed his eyes. Tomorrow. Maybe. I don't know. Boss, Vincent might not have until tomorrow. The words hit like a punch. Vincent. One of the first guys Lucian had brought in when the organization was still small enough to run out of a single location. The man who'd stood beside him through turf wars and federal investigations and the slow, brutal climb to the top. Vincent had 3 ex-wives and no kids, and a loyalty that ran deeper than blood. And now he was dying because Lucien wasn't there. Do what you can, Lucien said quietly. Keep me updated. He hung up before Marcus could argue. The house settled around him in silence. Rain had stopped sometime during the night, leaving everything damp and cold. Lucien stood in the dark living room of a house that belonged to a different life, trying to figure out how to be 2 people at once. Upstairs, a door opened. Footsteps on the landing. Elena appeared at the top of the stairs, backlit by the hallway light, wrapped in a robe that used to fit but now hung loose on her shrinking frame. Who was that? Her voice was rough from sleep and medication. Work? It's 4 in the morning. My kind of work doesn't keep regular hours. Elena descended slowly, gripping the banister with both hands. Lucien moved to help, but she waved him off the way she always did. Independent to a fault. She made it to the bottom and stood there studying his face. "You're leaving, aren't you?" "Not a question, an observation." "I don't know yet." "Yes, you do. I can see it on your face. Something happened and you're already halfway out the door." Lucien wanted to argue, but the words wouldn't come. She was right. Some part of him had already left the moment Marcus said Vincent's name. "One of my guys got shot tonight," he said. "He might not make it." "And you think being there will help?" "I think not being there is what caused it." Elena laughed, but there was no humor in it, just exhaustion. "You really believe that? That the world falls apart if you're not standing in the middle of it, holding everything together?" "It's my responsibility." "No, it's your excuse." She moved past him toward the kitchen. "You want coffee? I'm making coffee." "Elena, you should be resting." "I've been resting. Now I want coffee." He followed her into the kitchen and watched her go through the motions of filling the machine, measuring grounds, setting it to brew. Her hands shook slightly. Whether from illness or anger, Lucien couldn't tell. "Vincent has been with me for 15 years, he said to her back. "He's family. So are we." Elena turned to face him. "Me and Marco, we're actually your family. Not just people you work with who happen to be loyal, your actual blood. And you're still trying to figure out which of us is more important. That's not fair. Isn't it? You've been here less than 48 hours and you're already looking for a reason to leave. Someone tried to kill one of my closest friends. Someone tried to kill him because of what you do, because of the life you chose. And instead of walking away from it, instead of choosing your son and your dying wife, you're going to walk right back into the same violence that caused this in the first place." The coffee maker beeped. Elena poured 2 cups, handed one to Lucien. Her fingers brushed his, and he noticed how cold they were. "I can't just walk away," he said. "It doesn't work like that." "Why not?" "Because people are counting on me. Because if I don't respond, more people will die. Because you're scared." Elena sipped her coffee, watching him over the rim. "You're scared that without the power and the violence and the empire, you're just some guy from the South Side who got lucky. You're scared that if you stop being Lucien Varelli, the crime boss, you won't know how to be anyone else." The observation landed with surgical precision. Lucien wanted to argue, wanted to explain all the reasons she was wrong. But standing there in the kitchen at 4 a.m. with his dying wife looking at him like she could see straight through to the truth he'd been hiding from himself, he couldn't find the words. "I built something," he said finally. "It might not be good, but it's mine. And I can't just let it burn." "Yes, you can. You just don't want to." "Elena, go." She set down her coffee cup. "If you're going to leave, just go. Don't stand here pretending you're conflicted when we both know you've already made your choice." "I haven't decided anything." "Then decide. Right now. Vincent or Marco, your empire or your son. Choose, Lucien, because I'm too tired to watch you try to do both." The words hung in the air between them like a challenge. Lucien opened his mouth, but nothing came out. How do you choose between the life you built and the people you built it for? How do you walk away from 15 years of blood and sweat and sacrifice? How do you stay when staying might mean watching more people die? His phone buzzed. Text from Marcus. "Vincent's in surgery. Not looking good. The Volkovs just hit another one of our locations. This is escalating fast." Lucien stared at the screen. Elena watched him read it. Watched the calculations happen behind his eyes. Watched him become the man she'd lost years ago. "I need to go," he said quietly. Elena nodded like she'd expected nothing less. "Then go." "Just for a few hours. I'll be back before Marco wakes up." "Don't make promises you won't keep." "Elena, I mean it. Don't stand there and lie to me about coming back. If you're leaving, own it. At least give me that much respect." Lucien grabbed his coat from the hook by the door, grabbed his keys, stopped with his hand on the doorknob. "I'm sorry," he said without turning around. "I know you are. You're always sorry. It just never changes anything." Then he was outside in the cold pre-dawn air, climbing into his car, pulling out of the driveway of a house he'd barely lived in, leaving behind a wife who was dying and a son who was learning that fathers were just men who left. The city swallowed him whole within minutes. County hospital smelled like blood and failure. Lucien found Vincent's room on the fourth floor, surrounded by armed men trying to look inconspicuous in a place where nothing about them was inconspicuous. They straightened when they saw him, relief visible on their faces. The king had returned. Everything would be okay now. Except nothing was okay. Vincent lay in the ICU bed looking like a broken thing. Tubes everywhere, machines breathing for him, bandages covering most of his chest. His face was the color of old newspaper, lips cracked, eyes swollen shut from whatever they'd done to keep him alive. Marcus stood by the window looking like he hadn't slept in days. He turned when Lucien entered. "How is he?" "Alive. Barely. They had to remove part of his lung. The bullet that went through his neck missed his carotid by centimeters. He's lucky." Lucky. Lucien looked at his friend, his brother in everything but blood, hooked up to machines that were doing the work his body couldn't, and thought about how far the word lucky had fallen. "Has he been conscious?" "No, doctors are keeping him sedated. They said the next 12 hours are critical." 12 hours? Vincent might be dead in 12 hours. Lucien pulled up a chair and sat beside the bed. Up close, Vincent looked even worse. Pale, fragile. Nothing like the man who'd laughed while breaking someone's fingers just last month for skimming profits. "Who else knows about this?" Lucien asked. "Everyone. The Volkovs made sure of it. They're sending a message loud enough that half the city can hear it." "What message?" "That you're weak, that you can't protect your own people, that anyone who works for you is a target." Marcus moved away from the window. "Lucien, we're hemorrhaging loyalty. 3 of our mid-level guys switched sides this morning. 2 more disappeared. People are scared." "Let them be scared. That's not how this works. Fear makes people do stupid things. We need to respond, hard, fast. Something that reminds everyone why they should be more afraid of us than of the Volkovs." Lucien knew Marcus was right. In their world, perception was everything. The moment you looked weak, you became weak. Predators circled, allies abandoned, territory got swallowed. But responding meant committing, going to war, choosing this life completely, choosing away from Elena, away from Marco. "Give me options," Lucien said. Marcus pulled out his phone, brought up a map. "The Volkovs operate out of 3 primary locations: nightclub in River North, shipping facility near O'Hare, and a restaurant in Bucktown that's a front for their real operations. We hit all 3 simultaneously. Maximum damage. Send them a message they can't ignore." "Casualties?" "Probably. They're not going to surrender quietly." "Civilian casualties?" Marcus hesitated. "We try to minimize them. Try." The word that meant nothing when bullets started flying. Lucien thought about Marco waking up in a few hours to find his father gone again. Thought about Elena sitting alone in that house waiting for a phone call that might never come. Thought about all the promises he'd made in the last 48 hours that were already turning into lies. "Not yet," he said. "Boss, I said not yet. We do this smart. We don't go in guns blazing like amateurs and hope for the best. We gather intelligence, find their weak points, wait for the right moment. While they keep killing our people? While we don't make mistakes, we can't take back." Marcus stared at him like he was speaking a foreign language. In a way, he was. The old Lucien would have already mobilized the crew, already planned the assault, already committed to the violence necessary to maintain power. This version of Lucien was hesitating, and in their world, hesitation was fatal. "I need to make some calls," Lucien said, standing. "Stay with Vincent. If anything changes, text me immediately." He left before Marcus could argue. Outside Vincent's room, the armed men watched him pass with expressions that mixed hope and doubt. Lucien kept his face neutral, kept moving, found an empty stairwell, and finally let himself feel the weight of everything crushing down. Vincent was dying. Sal was dead. The empire was crumbling, and Lucien was standing in a hospital stairwell at 5 in the morning, trying to figure out how to be 2 different men at the same time when he barely knew how to be one. His phone buzzed. "Elena, Marco woke up asking for you. I told him you had to work. He didn't believe me." The message felt like a knife between the ribs. Lucien typed a response, deleted it, tried again. I'll be home soon. Don't make promises you won't keep. She'd sent the same thing twice. Like she knew exactly what Lucien was doing. Like she'd seen this pattern enough times to predict every move before he made it. He called her instead of texting. She answered on the third ring. What? Put Marco on. Why? Because I want to talk to my son. Silence. Then shuffling. Then Marco's voice, small and suspicious. Yeah? Hey, buddy. How are you feeling? Fine. Mom said you were looking for me. I wasn't looking for you. I just woke up, and you weren't here. The distinction mattered. Lucien closed his eyes. I had to handle something for work. Okay. I'll be back soon. We can have breakfast together. I'll make those scrambled eggs you like. With cheese? With cheese. You don't know how to make them right. Then you can teach me. Marco didn't respond immediately. In the background, Lucien could hear Elena coughing, deep, rattling coughs that sounded painful. Is Mom okay? Lucien asked. She's fine. She's always fine. The kid's voice carried an edge Lucien recognized. Anger, the kind that built up over time when nobody was paying attention. When are you actually coming back? I don't know. A few hours. That's what you said yesterday. I know. I'm sorry. Stop saying that. What? Stop saying you're sorry. It doesn't mean anything anymore. Then Marco hung up. Lucien stood there holding a dead phone, listening to the echo of his 9-year-old son calling him out for being exactly what he was, a liar, a man who made promises he never intended to keep. He called back. Elena answered. Don't, she said. Whatever you're about to say, just don't. Come home or don't come home. But stop torturing him with maybes. I'm trying to... I don't care what you're trying to do. I care what you're actually doing. And what you're actually doing is choosing the same thing you always choose. She paused. There's something else you should know. The way she said it made Lucien's stomach drop. What? Celine showed up here 20 minutes ago. The world tilted. What? Pregnant girlfriend showed up at our door asking to speak with you. Real classy move. Jesus. Elena, I'm sorry. She's still here, waiting in her car across the street. I told her you weren't home, but she said she'd wait. So unless you want your son seeing you have a conversation with the woman carrying your other child, you might want to get here fast. Then she hung up too. Lucien stood in the stairwell trying to process what he'd just heard. Celine was at the house, his house, where Elena was dying and Marco was learning what betrayal looked like. He ran. Mars. Lucien made it back to Oak Park in 17 minutes, breaking every traffic law that existed and a few that didn't. Selena's Mercedes sat across the street exactly where Elena said it would be. Engine running, waiting. Lucien parked in the driveway and walked toward her car before he could think better of it. She saw him coming and rolled down the window. She looked terrible. No makeup, hair pulled back, eyes red from crying or lack of sleep. You weren't supposed to come here, Lucien said. You weren't answering your phone. Because I didn't want to talk to you. Too bad. We need to talk anyway. She gestured at the passenger seat. Get in. No. Lucien, I'm not getting in your car. If you want to talk, talk. But make it fast because my wife and son are inside that house watching this conversation happen. Celine glanced toward the house. Sure enough, the living room curtain moved slightly. Someone was watching. Fine. She got out of the car, stood facing him on the sidewalk. I went to the doctor yesterday. Got an ultrasound. Lucien's pulse spiked. And I'm definitely pregnant. 8 weeks, due in November. She pulled something from her purse, an ultrasound photo. Black and white. The kind that looked like abstract art unless you knew what you were looking at. That's your baby, Lucien. Our baby. He took the photo with hands that had started shaking, stared at it, a tiny blob that would become a person. Another child. Another life he'd be responsible for failing. What do you want? He asked quietly. I want to know if you're going to be part of this or not. I told you I needed time to think. It's been 3 days. How much time do you need? More than 3 days. Celine laughed bitterly. You know what's funny? When we started this, you told me Elena didn't understand you. You said she made you feel trapped. You said being with me made you feel alive. She gestured at the house. But the second things got real, you ran right back to her. So who's really trapped, Lucien? This isn't about feeling trapped. Then what is it about? It's about... He stopped, trying to find words for something he barely understood himself. She's dying, Celine. My wife is dying, and I'm the reason she collapsed. I can't just walk away from that. Why not? You walked away from her for 6 months to be with me. What's different now? Everything is different now. Because she's sick? Because I finally see what I've been doing. The admission came out rough. I've been running from responsibility, from guilt, from being the kind of man who has to look at himself in the mirror and face what he's become. And you, he looked at her, you made that easy. You made it fun. But it wasn't real. This baby is real. Celine pressed the ultrasound photo against his chest. This is as real as it gets. I know. So what are you going to do about it? Lucien looked at the photo, looked at the house, looked at Celine standing there waiting for an answer he didn't have. I don't know, he said finally. I honestly don't know. That's not good enough. It's all I have right now. Celine's expression hardened. Fine. Then let me make it simple for you. I'm keeping this baby, with or without you. But if you choose to be part of its life, you don't get to do it halfway. No weekend visits, no guilt checks. Either you're in completely or you're out completely. That's not fair. Life isn't fair. You taught me that. She got back in her car. You have until the end of the week. After that, I'm making decisions without you. And Lucien, if you choose her over me, if you choose that dead marriage over our future, I meant what I said. Everyone will know exactly who you are. She drove away, leaving Lucien standing on the sidewalk, holding an ultrasound photo of a child he hadn't decided if he wanted. The front door opened. Marco stood there in pajamas, staring at his father with an expression Lucien couldn't read. Who was that? The kid asked. Lucien shoved the photo in his pocket. Nobody. Mom says she's your girlfriend. The word from his son's mouth felt obscene. She's not. It's complicated. Is she the reason you sent Mom that message? Christ, how much had Elena told him? Marco, is she? Yes. The kid nodded like this confirmed something he'd already suspected. Are you leaving us for her? No, I'm not leaving. You keep saying that, but you keep disappearing. Fair. God, it was fair. Lucien walked toward the house. Marco didn't move from the doorway, forcing his father to stop at the bottom of the steps. I know I haven't been here, Lucien said. I know I've let you down, but I'm trying to be better. Trying isn't good enough. Then what is? Being here. Actually being here. Marco's voice cracked. Mom's dying and you're out there with some other woman who's having your baby, and I'm supposed to just pretend like everything's normal? So Elena had told him everything. Or the kid had heard them fighting. Either way, there were no more secrets left to hide behind. I screwed up, Lucien said. I screwed up in ways I can't fix. But I'm here now and I'm trying to... You're here because you feel guilty, not because you want to be. There's a difference. The observation came from someone far older than 9. Lucien wondered when his son had become wise enough to see through every excuse adults made. You're right, he said. I am here because I feel guilty, but that doesn't mean I don't also want to be here. Prove it. How? Stay. Marco's eyes were wet now. Just stay. For one whole day. Don't leave. Don't take calls. Don't disappear. Just be here like a normal dad. One whole day. Such a simple request. Such an impossible commitment. Lucien thought about Vincent dying in a hospital bed. Thought about the Volkovs circling. Thought about Marcus and the crew waiting for orders. Thought about an empire that would burn if he wasn't there to hold it together. Then he looked at his son standing in the doorway, with tears streaming down his face, asking for something as basic as presents, and finally understood what Elena had been trying to tell him. The empire was already burning. He'd just been too blind to see it. Okay, Lucien said. I'll stay. Marco didn't believe him. Lucien could see it in the kid's face. But he stepped aside anyway, let his father into the house, and closed the door against the cold morning air. Well, the day passed in slow agony. Lucien turned off his phone at 7 in the morning and put it in a drawer. Spent the day trying to be present while every instinct screamed at him to check messages, make calls, solve problems. He made breakfast, burned the eggs, tried again. Marco taught him how to get the cheese melted properly. They ate together at the kitchen table while Elena watched from the couch, too tired to join them but present enough to witness. Afterward, Lucian helped Marco with homework. Math problems he barely understood. Reading comprehension about a book he'd never heard of. He felt useless, watching his son work through problems the kid already knew how to solve, realizing that Elena had been doing this alone for years. Around noon, Marco asked if they could shoot hoops in the driveway. The ball was flat. The net was torn. But they played anyway, and for 20 minutes Lucian forgot about Vincent, and the Volkovs, and Celine, and ultrasounds, and dying empires. For 20 minutes he was just a father playing basketball with his son. Then Elena started coughing again. Deep, rattling coughs that shook her whole body. Lucian rushed inside, found her doubled over on the couch, unable to breathe. Marco stood frozen in the doorway, terror written across his face. "Call 911, Lucian said. "What?" "Marco, call 911 right now." The kid ran for the phone. Lucian held Elena, feeling how fragile she'd become, how wrong it felt that a person could disappear while you were holding them. The ambulance arrived in 8 minutes. Paramedics swarmed the house, asking questions Lucian couldn't answer. When did the symptoms start? What medications was she taking? Had this happened before? He didn't know. He didn't know any of it, because he'd never been here to see. They loaded Elena onto a stretcher. She was conscious, but barely, her eyes finding Lucien's as they wheeled her toward the door. "Marco," she whispered. "He's okay. I've got him." "Don't!" She coughed, gasped. "Don't leave him alone." "I won't. I promise." Then they were gone, sirens fading into the distance, leaving Lucian standing in his living room with his son beside him and a promise hanging in the air like smoke. Marco grabbed his hand, small fingers gripping tight. Is she going to die? Lucien wanted to lie. Wanted to say something comforting, but he'd spent 9 years lying to this kid and he was done. "I don't know," he said honestly. "Maybe. I don't want her to." "Me neither." They stood there holding hands in the wreckage of a normal day that had imploded, and Lucien felt something shift inside him, something fundamental. A decision being made without his permission by some part of him that was tired of running. His phone buzzed in the drawer where he'd hidden it. Once. Twice. 20 times. Then it started ringing, over and over. Emergency pattern, the kind that meant the world was burning and someone needed the king to fix it. Lucien didn't move. Marco looked up at him. "Your phone." "I know." "Aren't you going to answer it?" Lucien squeezed his son's hand. "No." "What if it's important?" "You're more important." The kid's eyes widened slightly, like he'd heard the words but couldn't quite believe them. The phone kept ringing, and Lucien kept standing there, holding his son's hand, choosing for the first time in years to let something burn rather than abandoning the person right in front of him. It's like they drove to the hospital together. Same place as before. Same emergency room. Different crisis. Elena was stable by the time they arrived. The doctor said it was acute respiratory distress, triggered by stress and the progression of her illness. They'd given her oxygen, stabilized her breathing, moved her to a private room for observation. Lucien and Marco sat beside her bed while machines beeped and nurses came and went with practiced efficiency. Elena looked at Lucien with eyes that had seen too much. "Your phone has been ringing for 2 hours." "I know." "You should answer it." "No." "Lucien, I made a promise to Marco. I'm keeping it." Something flickered across Elena's face. Surprise, maybe, or hope, or the beginning of trust that had been dead so long she'd forgotten what it felt like. "Thank you," she said quietly. Marco had fallen asleep in the chair beside the bed, exhausted from fear. Lucien watched his son breathe, thinking about all the moments like this he'd missed. All the nights Elena had sat alone in hospitals or houses or anywhere else while their child slept, and the world kept turning, and Lucien was nowhere to be found. "I need to tell you something," Elena said. "What?" "The doctors gave me an update on my prognosis while you were parking." Lucien's stomach dropped. "And?" 3 months. Maybe 4 if I'm lucky. The cancer's spreading faster than they hoped. 3 months. 90 days. Less time than most people spent planning a vacation. There has to be something they can do, Lucian said. There isn't. We've tried everything. Now it's just… She stopped, gathered herself. Now it's just about making the time count. Elena, I need you to promise me something. Anything. Don't make Marco watch me die slowly. When it gets bad, when I can't function anymore, I want to go somewhere. Hospice. Somewhere professionals can manage the pain. I don't want his last memories of me to be… Her voice broke. I don't want him to see me like that. Lucien felt something shatter inside his chest. Okay. And I need you to actually be there for him after. Not just physically. Actually be there. Learn who he is. What he likes. What scares him. Be the father you should have been all along. I will. Promise me, Lucien. Really promise. Not the kind of promise you make and then break. The kind you keep even when it's hard. I promise. Elena studied his face like she was trying to memorize it, or maybe just trying to decide if she believed him. Your phone is still ringing, she said. I don't care. You will. Eventually. That life doesn't just disappear because you want it to. Then I'll make it disappear. How? Good question. How did you erase 15 years of violence and blood money and loyalty built on fear? How did you walk away from an empire without it following you home? Lucian didn't have an answer. His phone finally stopped ringing around 9 that night. The silence felt ominous. Then it started again. Different number this time. Marcus's personal cell. Lucien ignored it. Text messages started coming through, one after another. Lucien pulled the phone from his pocket and looked. Marcus. Boss, we have a serious situation. Marcus. The Volkovs hit another location. 4 of our guys dead. Marcus. They're saying if you don't respond by midnight, they're coming for your family. Marcus. Lucien. Answer your fucking phone. The last message came with a photo. Lucien's blood turned to ice. It was his house. His actual house in Oak Park. The one with blue shutters and a cracked driveway. Someone had spray-painted words across the front door in red. We know where they sleep. Marco stirred in his chair, still asleep. Elena watched Lucien's face change. What is it? She asked. Lucien showed her the photo. Elena's expression didn't change. She just looked at the image of their defaced home, then at her sleeping son, then at Lucien. So that's it then, she said quietly. They're not going to let you walk away. No. Even if you wanted to. No. What are you going to do? Lucien looked at the photo, at his house marked like territory, at the threat painted in red where his family slept. Then he looked at Marco, at Elena, at the 2 people who represented everything he should have protected, and instead had painted giant targets on by being who he was. And finally, standing in a hospital room at 9 o'clock at night with 3 months left to spend with his dying wife and a son who barely knew him, Lucien understood the terrible truth. There was no walking away. There was no redemption arc. There was no version of this story where he got to be both Lucien Virelli, the crime boss, and Lucien Virelli, the family man. He'd built an empire on blood, and now blood was the only currency it accepted. I'm going to end this, he said. How? The only way I know how. Elena closed her eyes. That's what I was afraid you'd say. Lucien kissed Marco's forehead, kissed Elena's hand. Then he walked out of that hospital room and called Marcus back. Where are you? Marcus answered on the first ring. On my way. Gather everyone. I want full numbers. Everyone we have. What are we doing? We're going to war. About time. What's the target? Lucien looked back at the hospital room one last time, at the life he'd almost chosen, the normal existence that would never be his. All of them, he said. We hit all 3 locations simultaneously. Maximum force. No survivors. I want the Volkov brothers, and everyone loyal to them dead by morning. Boss, that's an order. Silence on the line, then. Okay, I'll make the calls. Lucien hung up and stood in the hospital corridor watching nurses move between rooms, watching life continue in its ordinary rhythm while he planned murder on an industrial scale. His phone buzzed one more time. Celine. Have you made your decision yet? Lucian stared at the message, at the question that had seemed so complicated 3 days ago and now felt absurdly simple. He typed a response. The baby is mine. I'll take care of it, but you and I are done. Don't contact me again. That's not how this works. It's how it works now. You wanted me to choose. I'm choosing. My son, my wife, whatever time I have left with her, the baby when it's born. But not you, never you. You're making a mistake. I've made a lot of those. This isn't one of them. He blocked her number, deleted the conversation, threw the phone against the wall hard enough to shatter the screen. Then he walked out of the hospital into the cold Chicago night and climbed into his car and drove toward the kind of violence that would define what was left of his life. Because some men got to choose redemption, and some men just got to choose which version of hell they burned in. Lucian Varelli had finally figured out which one he was. The warehouse on Ashland smelled like gun oil and desperation. Lucien arrived just past midnight to find 37 men waiting for him. Some he'd known for years. Some were new blood, young and hungry. The kind who'd heard stories about Lucian Varelli and wanted to prove themselves worthy of standing beside a legend. They stood in clusters under flickering industrial lights, cleaning weapons, checking ammunition, smoking cigarettes with hands that trembled slightly despite their attempts to look calm. Marcus met him at the door. His face was drawn, eyes bloodshot from lack of sleep and too much coffee. Behind him, Vincent's absence felt massive, the empty space where his second-in-command should have been standing. Everyone's here, Marcus said. We've got the layouts for all 3 locations, entry points mapped, escape routes planned. We're ready. Lucien looked past him at the assembled crew. Killers. Thieves. Men who'd chosen this life for 1,000 different reasons and now found themselves preparing to commit mass murder because their boss had painted a target on their backs by loving the wrong woman. No, that wasn't fair. The target had been there long before Celine, long before Elena got sick. The target appeared the moment Lucian decided power was worth more than peace. Where's the intel on the Volkovs themselves? Lucian asked. Marcus pulled up photos on his phone. 2 men, brothers. Dmitry and Alexei Volkov, late 30s, early 40s, hard faces that had seen violence since childhood. They'd come up through the Russian mob in Brighton Beach before migrating west, bringing old-world brutality to Chicago's already blood-soaked underworld. Dmitry was the strategist. Alexei was the muscle. Together, they'd carved out territory through calculated aggression and a willingness to cross lines other organizations considered sacred. Women, children, civilians. The Volkovs didn't discriminate when sending messages. They'll both be at the nightclub, Marcus said. It's their flagship. They hold court there every Thursday night. Big egos. They want to be seen. Security? Heavy. At least 20 armed men inside. Another 10 outside. Cameras everywhere. Multiple exits. It's a fortress. Good. Fortresses trap the people inside as much as they keep people out. Marcus studied him. You're really doing this. Full assault. No subtlety. They threatened my family. They spray-painted my house. They killed Sal and put Vincent in a coma. Lucian's voice came out cold, flat. Yeah, I'm really doing this. There's going to be collateral damage. Civilians, maybe cops. This isn't some back alley hit we can sweep under the rug. I know. And you're okay with that? Lucien thought about Elena lying in a hospital bed with 3 months to live. Thought about Marco asking if his mother was going to die. Thought about the life he'd tried to build in the last 72 hours. The normal existence that had been ripped away the moment the Volkovs decided to make this personal. No, he said honestly. I'm not okay with any of it, but I'm out of options. Marcus nodded slowly. Then he raised his voice so the entire warehouse could hear. Listen up. Boss wants to talk. The conversations died. Cigarettes got crushed under boots. Everyone turned toward Lucien with expressions that mixed fear and anticipation. Lucien climbed onto a loading platform so they could all see him. Looked at the faces staring back. Some of these men wouldn't survive the night. They all knew it. The question was whether they'd die for something that mattered or just because their boss's pride demanded blood. The Volkovs think we're weak, Lucian said. His voice echoed in the cavernous space. They think because I've been absent the last few days, because I didn't respond immediately to their provocations, that this organization is vulnerable, that you're vulnerable. Heads shook. Muttered disagreements rippled through the crowd. They're wrong, but they won't know they're wrong until we show them. Lucian paused. Tonight, we hit all three of their locations simultaneously. We go in hard, we go in fast, and we don't leave until the Volkov brothers and everyone loyal to them is dead. Someone in the back shouted agreement. Others joined in. The energy in the room shifted, fear transmuting into something more dangerous. Anticipation. Some of you won't make it home, Lucian continued, his voice cutting through the noise. That's the truth. This isn't going to be clean, but the men who do survive will be remembered. Your families will be taken care of. Your sacrifices will mean something. More shouts, fists raised, the kind of pre-battle fervor that men worked themselves into before doing things that would haunt them forever. Lucian let it build for a moment, then raised his hand for silence. One more thing. If any of you want out, now's the time. Walk away. No judgment. No consequences. This is bigger than a turf war. This is existential. So if you're not ready to die tonight, leave. No one moved. Lucian had expected that. Loyalty built on fear and money rarely broke until after the shooting started. Good. Marcus has your assignments. We move in 1 hour. He climbed down from the platform and walked toward the back office, away from the preparation, needing a moment alone before leading men to their deaths. The office was small and cramped, filled with file boxes and a desk that hadn't been cleaned in months. Lucian closed the door and leaned against it, feeling the weight of what he was about to do settle into his bones. His phone sat in pieces on the desk where he'd thrown it earlier. Shattered screen, broken case, but somehow still functional. It buzzed once. Notification from a number he didn't recognize. Lucian almost ignored it. Then curiosity won. He picked up the largest piece and squinted at the fractured display. The message was from Elena. She must have used a nurse's phone. Marco keeps asking when you're coming back. I don't know what to tell him anymore. I don't even know if you're coming back. The words hit like bullets. Lucian typed a response with hands that shook. The broken screen made it difficult, but he managed. I'm coming back, I promise. Just need to handle something first. What are you handling? The people who threatened you and Marco. Long pause. Then, by handling you mean killing, not a question. Elena knew him too well. Yes. How many people are you about to kill tonight, Lucian? He didn't answer, couldn't answer, because the honest number would destroy whatever fragile trust they'd rebuilt in the last 3 days. That many. Elena's response came through after a full minute of silence. And you think that makes us safer? You think murdering your way through Chicago's underworld protects your son? It protects him from people who spray paint threats on our door. No. It creates more enemies. More people who want revenge. More targets on his back. You're not protecting him. You're guaranteeing he'll never be safe. Then what do you want me to do? Just let them come for us? Let them kill our son because I was too much of a coward to respond? I want you to walk away. From all of it. Disappear. Take Marco somewhere far from Chicago and this life and let the empire burn without you. I can't. You mean you won't? Same thing. No, it's really not. Lucian stared at the broken screen, at his dying wife's words cutting through every excuse he'd built. If you do this tonight, Elena typed, if you go through with whatever you're planning, don't come back to the hospital. I don't want Marco seeing you covered in blood. I don't want him knowing what you are. What I am is trying to protect you. What you are is a killer. And killers don't get to pretend they're heroes just because they love their families. The message felt like a knife between the ribs. Lucian wanted to argue, wanted to explain that sometimes violence was the only language the world understood. But standing in a warehouse surrounded by armed men preparing for mass murder, he couldn't find words that didn't sound hollow. I love you, he typed. Both of you. Everything I'm doing is because I love you. The response took so long he thought maybe Elena had given up. Then finally, I know, that's what makes it so tragic. Then nothing. No more messages. Just silence. Lucien set down the phone and sat in the dark office listening to his crew prepare for war and wondering when love had become indistinguishable from destruction. Tick. They moved out at 1:30 in the morning. 3 teams. 12 men each. Marcus led the assault on the shipping facility near O'Hare. Another lieutenant Lucien barely knew took the restaurant in Bucktown. Lucien kept the nightclub for himself. River North, heart of the Volkov's operation, where the brothers would be holding court, surrounded by loyal soldiers and civilian shields they wouldn't hesitate to use. The drive took 20 minutes through empty streets slick with rain that had started falling again. Chicago at night looked like a different city, neon bleeding into puddles, steam rising from grates, homeless people huddled in doorways watching expensive cars pass without hope of intervention. Lucien rode in the lead vehicle with 5 men he'd personally selected. The best shooters, the most loyal, the ones who wouldn't hesitate when civilians started screaming. No one talked during the drive. They just checked weapons, adjusted body armor, and stared out windows at a city that would wake up tomorrow to news of a massacre. The nightclub appeared ahead. 3 stories of converted warehouse with the Volkov's logo, a wolf's head, illuminated in red neon above the entrance. Bass thumped from inside. People lined up on the sidewalk despite the late hour. Beautiful women in expensive dresses and men in suits that cost more than most people's monthly rent. The kind of crowd that wanted to be seen, that chased danger like a drug. They had no idea they were standing outside a war zone. 2 minutes, Lucien said quietly. His driver nodded, circling the block. The other vehicles did the same, approaching from different angles. Coordinated, professional, the kind of operation that took planning and discipline. Lucien's phone buzzed. Marcus. In position at the shipping facility. Waiting on your signal. Then the other team leader. Restaurant secured. Ready on your go. Lucien looked at the nightclub, at the people laughing outside, smoking cigarettes, flirting with strangers. Normal people living normal lives who'd picked the wrong night to chase excitement. Some of them would die in the next 10 minutes. That was the truth. Unavoidable. Lucien could warn them, could fire shots in the air and scatter the crowd. But that would alert the Volkovs, give them time to escape. Guarantee this would happen again tomorrow, or next week, or next month, until someone finally won. And Lucien was tired of fighting wars that never ended. Go, he said into the phone. Then all 3 teams moved simultaneously. The first shots came from the back entrance. Lucien's men breached the service door with a battering ram, pouring into the kitchen where staff scattered like startled birds, screaming, running. A chef grabbed a knife before thinking better of it and diving behind a counter. Lucien followed his team through the controlled chaos, his own weapon drawn but not firing. Not yet. The real targets were upstairs in the VIP section where the Volkovs held their court. Gunfire erupted from the main floor, the Volkovs' security responding. Muzzle flashes lit up the darkness like strobes. Music still pounded from the speakers, drowning out the screams until someone finally cut the power and everything went dark except for emergency lighting. Stairs! Lucien shouted over the noise. 2nd floor! Now! His team pushed forward. Bodies hit the ground. Some were Volkov men. Some might have been civilians. Lucien couldn't tell in the chaos and didn't let himself look too closely. They hit the stairs at a run. Bullets tore chunks from the wall beside Lucien's head. He fired back, saw someone fall, kept moving. His men poured up behind him, their boots thundering on metal steps. The 2nd floor opened into a long hallway with private rooms on either side. More gunfire. One of Lucien's men went down clutching his leg, screaming. Another stepped over him and kept advancing. Room at the end, someone shouted. That's where they keep the brothers. The door was reinforced steel, not getting through that with a battering ram. Lucien gestured to one of his men carrying explosives, shaped charge, designed to blow the lock without bringing down the whole building. They had maybe 30 seconds before the Volkovs either escaped through a back exit or rallied enough men to overwhelm the assault team. The explosive expert worked fast, hands steady despite bullets still flying in the hallway, set the charge, primed the detonator, looked at Lucien. Everyone back. They retreated around the corner. The explosion was compact but deafening. Lucien's ears rang. Smoke filled the corridor. Then his men were moving again, pouring through the destroyed doorway into whatever lay beyond. Lucien followed them into hell. The VIP room looked like a bunker. Reinforced walls. Security monitors showing every angle of the club. A wet bar along one wall. Expensive furniture. And in the center, behind an overturned table they were using as cover, The Volkov brothers. Dmitri and Alexei. Exactly like their photos, but somehow more dangerous in person. Both held automatic weapons. Both were firing with the kind of precision that came from years of experience. One of Lucien's men dropped immediately, shot through the throat. Another took rounds to the chest, body armor stopping the bullets, but the impact knocking him backward. "Spread out!" Lucien shouted. "Flanking positions!" His remaining men scattered, using furniture and walls for cover. The room erupted into a firefight at close range, the kind where luck mattered more than skill. Dmitri's voice cut through the chaos. Heavy accent, amused despite the circumstances. "Lucien Varelli finally comes out to play. You threatened my family," Lucien called back. "What did you think would happen?" "We thought you would come, like dog. Predictable." Dmitri laughed. "You bring what? 5 men? 6? We have 20 more downstairs. You are trapped." "Then I'm trapped with you." More gunfire. Glass exploded. Someone screamed. Lucien couldn't tell whose side the scream came from. He moved, darting between cover points, trying to get an angle on the brothers. Alexei tracked his movement and fired. Bullets chewed through the wall, inches from Lucien's head. Dust and wood splinters filled the air. Then one of Lucien's men got lucky. A clean shot that caught Alexei in the shoulder. The big Russian grunted, dropped his weapon, clutched at the wound. Dmitri roared something in Russian. Rage or orders or both. He emptied his magazine toward Lucien's position, then ducked back behind cover to reload. That's when Lucien moved. He came around the flipped table fast, weapon raised, and found Dmitri crouched low trying to slam a fresh magazine home. Their eyes met. Recognition. Understanding. The moment before death that both men had seen 1,000 times in other people's faces. Lucien pulled the trigger. Click. Empty. He'd lost count of his shots in the chaos. Dmitri smiled, finished reloading, started to raise his weapon. Then Marcus appeared in the doorway behind him, having somehow fought his way up from the shipping facility assault. Marcus didn't hesitate, didn't announce himself, just fired 3 controlled shots into Dmitri's back. The Russian went down hard, weapon clattering across expensive hardwood. Alexei screamed, rushed forward despite his wounded shoulder. Got 2 steps before multiple weapons opened up, catching him in a crossfire that destroyed him before he hit the ground. Then silence. Sudden. Violent. The kind of quiet that only came after chaos. Lucien stood over Dmitri's body. The Russian was still alive, barely, blood pooling beneath him. His eyes found Lucien's. "You think?" Dmitri coughed blood. "You think this ends here?" "Yeah, I do it." "You're wrong. You kill us. Someone else takes our place. Then someone else. Then someone else." More coughing. "This life you chose. It never ends. Not until it ends you." The words landed with the weight of prophecy. Lucien put another round through Dmitri's head, ended the conversation, ended the war. Or so he thought. The problem with simultaneous assaults is they don't always go according to plan. Lucien learned this when his phone started blowing up during the drive back to the warehouse. Calls, texts, frantic messages from the team leaders he'd sent to the other 2 locations. The shipping facility operation had succeeded. Marcus and his men had eliminated the Volkov's presence there with minimal casualties. Clean, professional, exactly as planned. The restaurant was a different story. Cops showed up mid-assault, the team leader texted. Had to abort. 3 of our guys arrested, 2 wounded, target escaped. Lucien stared at the message, his blood running cold. "Stop the car." His driver pulled over. Rain hammered the windshield. The city lights blurred into abstract patterns. "What's wrong?" one of his men asked. Lucien called the team leader. The man answered on the first ring, breathing hard, background noise suggesting he was running. "What happened?" "I don't know, boss. We went in clean. 30 seconds later, cop cars everywhere, like they were waiting for us." "How many officers?" "At least a dozen. Full tactical response. Someone tipped them off." Someone tipped them off. The words echoed in Lucien's skull. Someone in his organization had betrayed him, sold him out to either the cops or to someone who wanted to see the operation fail. "Where are you now?" "Hiding. 3 blocks south. I can see the restaurant. Cops are still processing the scene. They got our guys in custody. Boss, they're going to talk." You know they're going to talk. Lucian did know. Put enough pressure on anyone and they broke. His arrested men would give names, locations, details about the entire organization. The empire he'd spent 15 years building would collapse in interrogation rooms over the next 72 hours. Disappear, Lucian said. Don't go home. Don't contact anyone. Just vanish until I figure out what's happening. Boss, that's an order. He hung up. Sat in the car listening to rain drum against metal and glass. We compromised? Marcus asked. He'd driven back separately, but now sat in the back seat looking grim. Yeah, we're compromised. How bad? 3 arrests. Maybe more if the cops are smart enough to track the others down. Plus, whoever tipped them off is still inside our organization. Lucien rubbed his face. We need to disappear the evidence, clean the warehouse, scatter the crew, assume the feds are coming. And then what? Good question. Then what? With the Volkovs dead, Lucien had eliminated the immediate threat. But he'd also just committed mass murder in front of dozens of witnesses. The cops had 3 of his men who would eventually talk. And somewhere in his organization, a traitor was feeding information to people who wanted him destroyed. The empire was burning exactly like Elena said it would. Then I go home, Lucien said quietly. Marcus stared at him. Home? Boss, we're in the middle of a crisis. We need you coordinating damage control, managing the crew, preparing for... You manage it. You're second in command now that Vincent's gone. I can't just... You can and you will. Lucien's voice came out harder than he intended. I'm done, Marcus, with all of it. The wars, the violence, the constant fighting to hold on to something that was never worth having in the first place. You're walking away after everything we just did? I'm walking away because of everything we just did. Marcus's expression shifted from confusion to something colder. Calculation, the look of a man realizing his boss might be broken beyond repair. What about the rest of us? Marcus asked. The guys who just risked their lives for you, the families of the men who died tonight? You're just going to abandon them? No. I'll make sure everyone's taken care of, money, lawyers, whatever they need, but I'm not leading anymore. This organization needs someone whose whole life isn't falling apart. Lucien, I have 3 months left with my wife before she dies. I have a son who barely knows me. He stopped. Thought about Celine and the ultrasound photo and the child that would be born into this mess. I have things I need to fix while I still can. Marcus leaned back, looked at Lucien like he was seeing him for the first time. You know this makes you look weak. I don't care. You should. Weakness in our world gets people killed. People got killed tonight because I was strong, because I responded to a threat with overwhelming violence like everyone expected. And you know what I have to show for it? 2 dead Russians and a bunch of witnesses who'll testify I ordered a massacre. We knew the risks. Maybe. But I'm tired of risking other people's lives for my pride. The car fell silent. Outside, the city continued its indifferent march toward morning. Soon, the sun would rise on a Chicago that would wake to news of gang violence, bodies, arrests, the kind of story that made headlines for a day before everyone moved on. But the people who died tonight wouldn't move on. Their families wouldn't move on, and Lucien would carry their ghosts for whatever time he had left. Drive me to the hospital, he told his driver. Which one? Mercy, where my wife is. Marcus grabbed his arm. You can't just leave. Not now. Not like this. Watch me. Lucien, I'm serious. You disappear right now. The whole organization fractures. We need leadership. You need someone who gives a damn about staying alive long enough to see tomorrow. Lucien pulled his arm free. That's not me anymore. Maybe it never was. He opened the car door. Rain soaked him immediately. Didn't matter. Nothing mattered except getting back to the hospital. Back to Elena. Back to Marco. Back to the people who'd loved him before he became a king. If you walk away now, Marcus called after him, I can't protect you. None of us can. You'll be on your own. Lucien stopped, turned back. I've been on my own this whole time. I just didn't realize it. Then he walked into the rain, leaving his crew and his empire and his identity behind. The hospital was quiet at 3 a.m. Lucien entered through the emergency room, dripping wet, probably looking like hell. The night nurse recognized him, same one from before, and her expression shifted from neutral to concerned. Mr. Varelli, Is everything okay? I need to see my wife, Elena Varelli, 4th floor. Visiting hours? I don't care about visiting hours. Something in his voice made her step back. Maybe she saw the violence still clinging to him. Maybe she just recognized a man who'd crossed some threshold and couldn't be reasoned with. 4th floor, she repeated quietly. Room 412. Lucian took the stairs 2 at a time. His legs burned. His lungs screamed. Adrenaline from the nightclub was fading, leaving behind exhaustion and something that felt like grief. He'd killed tonight, personally. Put bullets in men who'd probably had families of their own. Dmitri and Alexei might have been monsters, but monsters were still human, and Lucien had ended them without hesitation. Room 412 appeared ahead. The door was closed. Through the small window, Lucien could see Elena sleeping, machines breathing beside her in rhythm. Marco was curled in a chair beside the bed, using his jacket as a blanket. Lucien stood outside looking at them through glass. His family. The 2 people he'd spent years failing, and now here he was, covered in invisible blood, wanting to walk back into their lives like he hadn't just committed mass murder 3 miles away. He pushed open the door slowly, tried to be quiet. Failed. Marco woke immediately, his eyes finding Lucien in the doorway. The kid looked exhausted, scared, too young to be spending nights in hospitals watching his mother die. You came back, Marco said. Not a question. Not quite relief, just observation. I promised I would. You also promised you'd stay gone just a few hours. Fair. It had been almost 5 hours since Lucien left, 5 hours that felt like a lifetime. Elena stirred, opened her eyes, saw Lucien standing there, and something complicated crossed her face. Relief mixed with disappointment, mixed with resignation. It's done? She asked quietly. Lucien nodded. How many? I don't know. At least a dozen. Maybe more. Marco was watching this exchange, his young face trying to process what they were talking about, slowly understanding. His father had just killed people, multiple people, and his mother was asking about it like discussing the weather. You should go, Elena said. The police will be looking for you. Let them look. Lucien, I'm not running anymore. Not from them. Not from you. Not from any of it. He moved into the room, sat down on the edge of her bed. I know I screwed up. I know I can't fix what I've broken, but I have 3 months left with you, and I'm not wasting another second running towards something that never mattered. Elena studied his face, reached up with a hand that shook slightly, and touched his cheek. You're wet. It's raining. You should change clothes. You'll get sick. I don't care. I do. Such simple concern. After everything. After the betrayal and the lies and the violence, Elena still cared if he caught a cold. Lucien felt something crack inside his chest. Not break. Crack. The way ice cracks before it melts. I'm sorry, he whispered. For all of it. For being the kind of man who destroys everything he touches. I know. I don't know how to be different. Then learn. She squeezed his hand. You have 3 months. Start now. Marco spoke up from his chair. Are the police really coming? Both parents looked at him. Their son, 9 years old and already fluent in the language of crime and consequence. Maybe, Lucien said honestly. Probably. What happens if they catch you? I go to prison. For how long? A long time. Maybe forever. Marco processed this. Then, good. The word hit like a slap. Marco, Elena started. No. The kid stood up, his small fists clenched. He deserves it. He spent his whole life choosing everything else over us. Over you. And now Mom's dying and he thinks he can just come back and everything's okay because he says sorry. But it's not okay. None of this is okay. Lucien wanted to argue, wanted to defend himself, but every word Marco spoke was true. You're right, he said quietly. I do deserve it. Then why are you here? Why didn't you just let the police catch you somewhere else? Why come back and make us watch? Good question. Why had Lucien come back? Guilt? Love? Some desperate need for absolution he didn't deserve? Because I wanted to see your mother, he said. One more time before he stopped. Started over. I wanted to see both of you. We don't want to see you. Marco, that's enough, Elena said gently. It's not enough. It's not nearly enough. Tears were streaming down the kid's face now. I hate him. I hate what he is. I hate that he's my dad. I hate... His voice broke. I hate that I still wanted him to come back. The admission destroyed all three of them. Elena started crying. Marco collapsed back into his chair, sobbing, and Lucien sat there on the edge of the bed, realizing that some damage went too deep to ever fully heal. I don't know how to make this right, he said to both of them. I don't know what I'm supposed to do. You're supposed to be here, Elena said through tears. Not out killing people, not running your empire, just here, present, for whatever time we have left. And if the police come, then they come. But until they do, you're ours. Not the city's, not your organization's, ours. Lucien looked at his wife, dying. 3 months left, maybe less. Then he looked at his son, 9 years old, angry, hurt, justified in every accusation. These were his people, his actual family, and he'd spent 15 years treating them like obstacles to work around instead of the only things that mattered. Okay, he said, I'm yours. Outside, sirens wailed in the distance, getting closer. Chicago PD or ambulances or just the normal chaos of a city that never slept. Lucien didn't know which and tried not to care. He climbed onto the hospital bed beside Elena, careful not to disturb the IV lines and monitors. She shifted to make room, laying her head against his shoulder. Marco watched for a moment, then climbed up on the other side, small body pressed against his mother's. The three of them lay there in a too-small hospital bed, while machines beeped and rain hammered against windows, and somewhere in the city, the consequences of Lucien's choices were still unfolding. But for now, in this moment, he was exactly where he'd promised to be. Home. Finally, home. Even if it was 15 years too late and 3 months too short and surrounded by the ghosts of everyone he'd failed along the way. The sirens got louder. Then they passed, kept going. Not for him. Not yet. Lucien closed his eyes and let himself believe that maybe, just maybe, he'd get a few more hours before the world came for him. A few more hours to be a husband, a father, a man, before becoming a prisoner or a corpse, whichever came first. Morning came gray and unforgiving. Lucien woke to find Elena already awake, watching him with eyes that had seen too much and somehow still held tenderness. Marco had shifted in his sleep, small body pressed against his mother's side, one hand clutching the hospital blanket like a lifeline. What time is it? Lucien whispered. Almost 6. You slept for 2 hours. 2 hours. It felt like minutes, or years. Time had stopped making sense somewhere between killing the Volkov brothers and climbing into this hospital bed. You should have woken me. Why? So you could worry more? Elena's voice was soft but firm. You needed rest. Lucien sat up carefully, trying not to disturb Marco. His body ached from sleeping in an awkward position. His clothes were still damp from the rain, and underneath it all, exhaustion sat heavy in his bones like lead. The police didn't come, he said. Not yet. They will. Probably. Elena said it with such calm acceptance that Lucien wondered if she'd already made peace with what came next. Prison. Trials. His name dragged through newspapers while she fought cancer alone, and Marco grew up visiting his father through bulletproof glass. I'm sorry, he said for the 1,000th time. I know. Stop apologizing and start being present. Present. Such a simple concept. Such an impossible ask for someone who'd spent 15 years existing everywhere except the places that mattered. A nurse entered to check Elena's vitals. Professional. Efficient. She barely glanced at Lucien and Marco crowded onto the bed. Either she didn't care or had seen enough strange family configurations to stop judging. How's the pain? The nurse asked Elena. Manageable. On a scale of 1 to 10? 7, maybe 8. The nurse made notes, adjusted the IV drip. I'll let the doctor know. He'll probably increase your medication. After she left, Lucien studied Elena's face. The tightness around her eyes, The way she held herself too still, like movement might shatter something fragile. "You're lying," he said, "about the pain." "It's fine." "Elena, I said it's fine." Sharper now, then softer. "I don't want to spend whatever time we have left talking about my pain. There are more important things." "Like what?" "Like Marco, like what happens to him when I'm gone." The words hung in the air between them. "When I'm gone." Not if. When. The certainty of death had stopped being something to avoid acknowledging and become just another fact to plan around. Marco stirred, opened his eyes, saw his parents watching him. "What?" "Nothing, baby," Elena said. "Go back to sleep. I'm not tired anymore." The kid sat up, hair sticking in every direction, his face still puffy from crying last night. He looked at Lucien with an expression that mixed wariness and something else. Not quite forgiveness, but maybe the beginning of whatever came before forgiveness. "I'm hungry," Marco said. Such a normal statement, such a normal need. After everything, the violence, the tears, the confessions, a 9-year-old boy was hungry. "I'll get you something," Lucien said, standing. "What do you want?" "Pancakes. Hospital cafeteria doesn't open until 7. "Then I'll wait." Lucien looked at Elena. She nodded slightly. Permission or encouragement or just acknowledgement that this was what fathers did. They fed their children. Basic. Essential. "I'll be back in an hour," Lucien said. "With pancakes." He left before either of them could respond, stepping into the hospital corridor and immediately feeling exposed. Every nurse, every doctor, every security guard who passed could be the one who recognized him, who'd seen the news reports about the nightclub, who'd put together that Lucien Virelli was wanted for questioning in connection with multiple homicides. But no one stopped him. No one even looked twice. He was just another exhausted family member haunting hospital hallways at dawn, waiting for bad news or miracles. The parking lot was mostly empty. Lucien's Ferrari sat where he'd left it 5 hours ago, already accumulating a parking ticket. He grabbed it without reading it and climbed behind the wheel. His phone was still in pieces on the passenger seat. He collected the fragments, tried to power it on. The screen flickered, showing 37 missed calls and twice that many text messages before dying completely. Lucien threw it in the glove compartment and started the engine. He needed to think. Needed to plan. The Volkovs were dead, but the consequences of killing them were just beginning. His organization was compromised. 3 of his men were in custody. And somewhere out there, a traitor who tipped off the police about the restaurant assault was still feeding information to people who wanted him destroyed. The smart move would be to run, take Elena and Marco somewhere far from Chicago, disappear into a new life under a new name. He had enough money hidden in offshore accounts to support them comfortably, enough connections to arrange documents. But running meant Elena died in some unfamiliar place surrounded by strangers. It meant Marco grew up disconnected from everything he knew. And it meant Lucien spent whatever time he had left looking over his shoulder, waiting for the past to catch up. No. Running wasn't the answer. So what was? Lucien drove through empty streets, watching Chicago wake up around him. Delivery trucks making early rounds, joggers braving the cold, coffee shops turning on their lights. The city moved forward like nothing had changed, indifferent to the violence that had reshaped its underworld the night before. He stopped at a diner near Millennium Park. Small place. Decades old. The kind with cracked vinyl booths and coffee that tasted like it had been brewing since the previous century. A waitress appeared immediately. Late 50s, kind eyes, the exhausted competence of someone who'd been working the morning shift for longer than Lucien had been alive. "What can I get you, honey?" "Coffee, black, and 3 orders of pancakes to go." "That all?" "Yeah." She studied him for a moment. "You okay?" The question surprised him. "Why?" "You look like you haven't slept in a week, and you're shaking." Lucien looked at his hands. She was right, trembling slightly, adrenaline crash mixing with exhaustion, and something that might have been the first stages of a breakdown. "I'm fine," he lied. "Uh-huh." The waitress didn't believe him but wrote down his order anyway. "Pancakes will be ready in 10 minutes. She walked away, leaving Lucien alone in a booth by the window. Outside, the sun was trying to break through clouds without much success. Rain had stopped, but everything still looked wet and gray. His reflection stared back at him from the window. Lucien barely recognized the man looking back, dark circles under his eyes, 2 days of stubble, lines in his face that hadn't been there a week ago. This was what rock bottom looked like. The waitress returned with coffee, set it down along with cream and sugar Lucien hadn't asked for. "On the house," she said. You look like you need it. Thank you." "You got family in the hospital?" Lucien wondered how she knew, then realized he was still wearing yesterday's clothes, still damp from rain, sitting in a diner at 6:30 in the morning ordering takeout pancakes. Not hard to piece together. "My wife," he said. "She's sick." "I'm sorry." The waitress's expression softened with genuine sympathy. "How's she doing?" "Dying." The blunt honesty surprised both of them. Lucien hadn't meant to say it like that, but there it was, the truth stripped of euphemism or hope. "That's hard," the waitress said quietly. "Real hard. You holding up okay?" "No." "Yeah, most people don't." She paused. "You got kids?" "A son, 9 years old." "Then you got something to fight for. Hold on to that when everything else falls apart." She walked away before Lucien could respond, disappearing into the kitchen. He sat there drinking terrible coffee and thinking about her words. You got something to fight for. Did he? Or had he destroyed that too? His pancakes arrived in a paper bag still warm. Lucien paid cash, left a tip that was probably too large, and drove back toward the hospital. Halfway there, his broken phone somehow managed to ring. One last gasp of life before dying permanently. Lucien almost ignored it. Then curiosity won. He pulled over, dug the phone from the glove compartment, answered without checking who was calling. "Yeah." "Lucien." Marcus's voice, strained, urgent. "Where are you?" "Picking up breakfast. What's wrong?" "Everything's wrong. The feds raided the warehouse an hour ago, arrested 12 guys, seized weapons, money, records. They're tearing apart the entire organization." Lucien's stomach dropped. "How?" "The 3 guys the cops picked up at the restaurant last night. They talked, gave up everything, locations, names, operations. Boss, we're done. The empire's collapsing." The empire's collapsing. The words should have devastated him. Instead, Lucien felt something unexpected. Relief. "Let it collapse," he said quietly. Silence on the line. Then, "What?" "I said let it collapse. I'm done, Marcus. With all of it." "You can't just..." "Lucien, they're coming for you specifically. The guys we arrested are saying you ordered the nightclub assault. They're calling it a massacre. Premeditated murder. You're looking at life in prison if they catch you." "I know." "So what's the plan? Where are we meeting? How are we getting you out of the city?" "We're not. I'm staying. That's suicide." "Maybe. But it's my choice." More silence. When Marcus spoke again, his voice had gone cold. "After everything, after 15 years of building this together, you're just giving up." "I'm not giving up. I'm choosing something different. You're choosing to abandon everyone who's ever been loyal to you." The accusation stung because it was true. Lucien was abandoning them. The crew, the organization. Everyone who'd put their faith in a king who'd decided he didn't want the crown anymore. "I'm sorry," Lucien said, "but I can't be that person anymore." "Can't or won't?" "Same thing." "No, it really isn't." Marcus's voice was sharp now, angry. "You're being a coward, running away into domesticity because the real world got too hard." "The real world killed my wife. The real world turned my son against me. The real world made me into something I don't recognize when I look in the mirror." Lucien's grip tightened on the phone. "So yeah, I'm running away from it, toward the only people who ever actually loved me. They won't love you in prison." "Then I'll love them from prison. It's more than I've done for the last 15 years. The line went dead. Marcus had hung up. Lucien sat in his car holding a broken phone and a bag of pancakes, watching morning traffic build around him, and wondered if he'd just made the biggest mistake of his life, or the first smart decision. Basag. Marco devoured the pancakes like he hadn't eaten in days. Maybe he hadn't. Lucien realized he had no idea when his son had last had a real meal. Yesterday? The day before? Elena would know. Elena kept track of these things even while dying. "These are good," Marco said through a mouthful of food. Don't talk with your mouth full. The kid swallowed. Sorry, such a small thing. Table manners. But it felt important, like Lucian was finally being a father instead of just a man who happened to have a child. Elena picked at her pancakes without much enthusiasm. The medication was making her nauseous, she explained. Everything tasted like cardboard. But she ate a few bites anyway because Marco was watching and she wanted to show him she was trying. They sat together in the hospital room sharing breakfast like a normal family, like they did this every day instead of it being maybe the third time in 9 years they'd eaten a meal together without Lucien's phone interrupting. I need to tell you something, Lucien said when Marco had finished eating. The kid looked up, syrup on his chin. What? The police are probably going to arrest me soon. Maybe today, maybe tomorrow, but soon. Marco nodded like he'd expected this. Because of what you did last night. Yeah, because of that. Are you scared? Honest question. Lucien gave an honest answer. Terrified. Good. You should be. Lena reached across and squeezed Marco's hand. Baby, that's not helpful. Why not? He should be scared. He did bad things. Bad things have consequences. You're right, Lucien said. They do, and I'm going to face those consequences. But before I do, I need to make sure you and your mom are taken care of. We don't need you to take care of us. I know. You've been taking care of yourselves while I was busy being important, but I'm asking anyway. Please let me do this one thing right. Marco studied him with eyes too old for 9. Finally, what do you want to do? I want to make sure you have enough money, that the house is paid off, that there's a trust fund for college, that when your mom to... He stopped, started over. That when it's just you, you're not alone. I'll be alone either way. You'll be in prison. Maybe, but I'll still be your father, and fathers take care of their kids even when they can't be there. That's what you've been doing my whole life. The observation landed like a knife. Lucien had no defense. It was exactly what he'd been doing, taking care of his family from a distance while calling it love. You're right again, Lucien said, but I'm asking for a chance to be better, even if it's just for a little while. Marco looked at his mother. Elena nodded slightly. Permission or encouragement or just acknowledgement that sometimes you had to let people try, even when they'd already proven they'd fail. Okay, Marco said finally. But when you go to prison, I'm not visiting. I don't want to see you in there. The words cut deeper than any knife. But Lucien nodded. Okay. And you can't call me all the time trying to be my dad from jail. I don't want that. Okay. And when you get out, if you get out, you can't just show up expecting things to be normal. You have to earn it. I will. I promise. Marco held his gaze for a long moment. Then he stood up, walked over to where Lucien sat, and hugged him. Just hugged him. No words. Just a 9-year-old boy who was angry and hurt and terrified his father was going to disappear forever, trying to say goodbye in the only way he knew how. Lucien held his son and felt something inside him finally break completely. Not crack. Break. Shatter into pieces that would never fit back together the same way. I love you, he whispered into Marco's hair. I'm sorry I didn't show it better. Marco didn't respond, just held on tighter for a few more seconds before pulling away and climbing back onto the bed beside his mother. Elena was crying, silent tears streaming down her face. She reached for Lucien's hand and squeezed. Thank you, she said quietly. For what? For being here. Finally being here. Before Lucien could respond, the door opened. A doctor entered. Different one from yesterday. Older. Carrying a tablet and wearing the expression medical professionals developed when they had bad news to deliver. Mrs. Varelli, Mr. Varelli, I need to speak with you about Elena's latest test results. The room went cold. Marco, baby, can you go to the vending machine and get yourself a snack? Elena said, her voice steady despite the fear in her eyes. I want to stay. Please. Something in her tone made the kid nod. He climbed off the bed, took the $5 bill Lucien handed him, and left the room. The door closed with a soft click. The doctor pulled up a chair, set his tablet on the bedside table. The cancer has progressed significantly faster than we anticipated. The stress from recent events likely accelerated the spread. Lucien's chest tightened, How much faster? We were estimating 3 to 4 months. Based on the current imaging, I'd say we're looking at weeks now. Maybe a month if we're fortunate. The world tilted. Weeks. Not months. Weeks. Elena took the news with the same calm she'd shown about everything else, like she'd been preparing for this moment long before the doctor confirmed it. How long until I can't take care of myself anymore? She asked. That's difficult to predict. The disease affects everyone differently. But realistically, you probably have 2, maybe 3 weeks of relative functionality. After that, you'll need full-time care. Hospice? I'd recommend it, yes. They can manage pain more effectively than we can here, and it'll be more comfortable for you, for your family. Elena nodded, absorbing information, planning, already 3 steps ahead the way she always was. Thank you, doctor, she said. Can you give us a few minutes? Of course. I'll have a nurse bring in some information about hospice facilities in the area. He stood, paused at the door. I'm very sorry. I wish I had better news. Then he was gone, leaving Lucien and Elena alone with the reality that had just cut their remaining time in half. Weeks, Lucien said. His voice came out hollow. We have weeks. I know. That's not enough. That's nowhere near enough. It's what we have. Elena said it with such finality that Lucien couldn't argue. She was right. They could rage against the unfairness, or they could use what little time remained. What do you want to do? He asked. I want to go home. The doctor said you'll need care. Then we'll get care. Hospice can come to the house, can't they? Yeah, they can. Good. I want to die in our bed, in our house, with my family around me, not in some sterile room surrounded by machines. Lucien thought about the house in Oak Park, blue shutters, cracked driveway, the bedroom they'd shared when they were young and hopeful and believed they could build something beautiful together. Okay, he said, we'll take you home. Today. Elena, you're not strong enough to… Today, Lucien, I don't have time to wait until I'm strong enough. I'll never be strong enough again. The truth of it silenced him. Marco returned carrying a candy bar and a soda. He looked between his parents, reading the tension in the room. What happened? We're going home, Elena said. All of us. Today. The kid's face lit up with something that might have been hope. Really? Really? For how long? Elena and Lucien exchanged a look, the kind of wordless communication that happened between people who'd known each other half their lives. For as long as we need to, Elena said carefully. It's time we all stopped running and just be together. Marco didn't fully understand what she meant. Lucien could see the confusion in his eyes. But the kid was smart enough to know when not to push for details. Can we watch movies? Marco asked. Like a real family? Yeah, baby. We can watch movies. And play board games? If you want. And Dad stays? He doesn't leave for work? Elena looked at Lucien. The question hung in the air between them. Could Lucien stay? Could he resist the pull of his crumbling empire long enough to be present for his dying wife and frightened son? I stay, Lucien said, no matter what, even when the police come, even when everything falls apart. I stay. Marco studied him like he was trying to determine if his father was lying. Finally, he nodded. Okay, then let's go home. They discharged Elena against medical advice. The doctor argued. The nurses warned about complications. But Elena was adamant, and Lucien signed whatever papers they needed to make it official. By noon, they were loaded into Lucien's Ferrari. Elena in the passenger seat reclined as far back as it would go. Marco in the tiny back seat surrounded by bags of medication and hospital discharge instructions. The drive to Oak Park took 40 minutes through midday traffic. Elena slept most of the way, exhausted from the effort of getting dressed and moving from bed to wheelchair to car. Marco stared out the window watching the city pass, his hand resting on his mother's shoulder like he was afraid she might disappear if he stopped touching her. Lucien drove carefully, taking corners slow, avoiding potholes. Every bump made Elena wince even in her sleep. By the time they pulled into the driveway, his hands ached from gripping the steering wheel so tightly. The house looked exactly like he'd left it 36 hours ago. Same blue shutters, same crack in the driveway, same basketball hoop with the fraying net. Except now the front door still had red spray paint across it. We know where they sleep. Marco saw it first. What's that? Lucien had hoped to clean it off before they got home. Too late now. Nothing, just vandalism. I'll take care of it. Is it from the people you killed last night? Jesus. The kid didn't hold back. No, they're dead. This was from before. Are more people coming? I don't know, maybe. What if they hurt Mom? They won't. I won't let them. Marco looked at him like he was trying to decide if his father was capable of protecting anyone. Lucien wasn't sure himself, but he'd die trying. That much he knew. They got Elena inside and settled on the couch. She was too weak to climb stairs, so the master bedroom was out of question for now. Marco brought down blankets and pillows, transforming the living room into a makeshift hospice. This okay? Lucien asked. Elena looked around at her house. Her home. The place she'd lived for 9 years, mostly alone while her husband built kingdoms. It's perfect, she said. The rest of the afternoon passed in strange domesticity. Lucien called a service to come clean the spray paint off the door. Made phone calls arranging hospice care to start the next day. Set up Elena's medications according to the complicated schedule the hospital had provided. Marco stayed close to his mother, reading to her from a book about dragons when she was awake, just sitting beside her when she slept. Around 5, Lucien's broken phone managed one final miracle. It rang. He almost didn't answer, but the number showed it was from Vincent's phone. Vincent, who'd been in a coma since the shooting, who might be dead by now for all Lucien knew. Hello? Lucien? Vincent's voice, weak, rough, but definitely alive. Vincent, Jesus, you're awake. Barely. Feels like someone drove a truck over my chest, multiple times. You got shot, 4 times. We thought, I know what you thought. Doctors told me, said I was lucky. Don't feel very lucky right now. Lucien stepped outside onto the porch, away from where Marco might hear. What happened? Are you still in the hospital? For now. They want to keep me another week for observation. But I'll live. Unlike Sal. Unlike the Volkovs. A pause. Marcus told me what you did, and what you're planning to do. What am I planning to do? Walk away. Let the organization collapse. Face whatever consequences come without fighting. Marcus talks too much. Marcus is trying to hold together what's left of our empire while you play house with your dying wife. The words hit hard, intentionally hard. Vincent had never been one to soften blows. She has weeks left, Lucien said quietly. Maybe a month. I'm not wasting that time rebuilding something that should have burned years ago. So you're just done? 15 years of work down the drain? It was already down the drain. I was just too proud to admit it. Vincent coughed. The sound came through the phone, wet and painful. When he spoke again, his voice was weaker. The feds are building a case. They have witnesses. They have evidence. Marcus says you're looking at life in prison if they convict. I know. And you're okay with that? No. But I'm done running, done fighting, done destroying everything I touch trying to build something that never mattered. Silence on the line, just Vincent's labored breathing. I get it, he finally said. I don't agree with it, but I get it. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. I'm calling because there's something you need to know. What? The traitor, the one who tipped off the cops about the restaurant. We found him. Lucien's blood went cold. Who? Tommy Ricci, your driver, the kid you brought in last year from the Southside crew. Tommy, 23 years old, ambitious, eager to prove himself. Lucien had trusted him with sensitive operations, with transportation, with information. You're sure? Positive. Found text messages on a burner phone. He's been feeding information to the feds for 6 months in exchange for immunity. Boss, he knows everything, locations, operations, names. He's the reason everything's falling apart. 6 months. Tommy had been betraying them for 6 months and nobody noticed. Where is he now? That's the thing. He disappeared. Went into protective custody after the restaurant raid. Feds have him somewhere safe while he prepares to testify. Against me. Against all of us. But yeah, mostly you. Lucien leaned against the porch railing, watching the sun sink toward the horizon. The sky had turned orange and purple, beautiful in the way endings sometimes were. Let him testify, Lucien said. I'm done fighting this. Boss, wah. I mean it, Vincent. I'm done. Let the feds build their case. Let Tommy say whatever he needs to say. I'm not running. I'm not hiding. I'm spending what time I have left with my family, and then I'm facing the consequences like a man instead of a coward. More silence. Then, you've changed. Yeah, I have. For better or worse? I don't know yet. Ask me in a month. You might not have a month. The feds could come for you tomorrow. Then they come tomorrow. Either way, I'm not abandoning my wife again. Vincent sighed. The sound carried resignation and something that might have been respect. Okay, boss. I'll pass the word. Organization's officially dissolved. Everyone's on their own. Take care of them, Vincent, the guys who are left. Make sure their families are provided for. There's money in the offshore accounts. Access codes are in my office safe. I know where they are? Good. Distribute it fairly. And Vincent? Yeah? Thank you for everything, for 15 years of loyalty. I know I didn't deserve it. You're right, you didn't, but we gave it anyway. A pause. Good luck, Lucien. I hope you find whatever you're looking for in there. The line went dead. Lucien stood on his porch watching the sunset and thinking about Tommy, about betrayal, about how everyone eventually broke under enough pressure. He couldn't even be angry. In a way, Tommy had just accelerated what was always going to happen. The empire was built on violence and fear. Sooner or later, it was always going to collapse. At least now it would collapse while Lucien was somewhere else, somewhere that mattered. The days that followed developed a rhythm. Mornings started early. Elena's pain was worst in the morning, requiring careful management of medications. Lucien learned to track doses, watch for side effects, anticipate needs before she had to ask. Marco went to school most days despite wanting to stay home. Elena insisted. She didn't want his education disrupted, didn't want him remembering these final weeks as nothing but watching his mother fade. So Marco would leave reluctantly each morning, and Lucien would sit with Elena through the quiet hours. They talked. Really talked. For the first time in years. About their past. About the early days when they were young and broke and stupid in love. About the moment everything started changing. About regrets that piled so high there was no counting them all. Do you remember our wedding? Elena asked one afternoon. City Hall, Tuesday. You wore that white dress from Goodwill. It cost $7. I felt like a princess. You looked like one, Elena smiled. Liar. I looked like a broke girl in a cheap dress, but you looked at me like I was the most beautiful thing you'd ever seen. Because you were. When did you stop seeing me like that? The question cut deep. Lucien thought about it honestly, tried to pinpoint the exact moment Elena had transformed from the woman he loved into an obligation he resented. I don't think I ever stopped, he said finally. I think I just started seeing other things more. Power, money, respect. And I convinced myself those things were for you, for us, but really they were for me, for my ego. At least you can admit it now. Too late though, isn't it? Maybe. Maybe not. We're here now. That counts for something. Did it? Lucien wasn't sure. Being present after 15 years of absence felt like too little too late. But Elena seemed to think it mattered, so maybe it did. The hospice nurse came daily. A woman named Patricia, late 40s, kind face. She'd seen this story 1,000 times before. Families cramming a lifetime of love into whatever days remained. She never judged, just showed Lucien how to manage the medications, how to help Elena stay comfortable, how to recognize when the end was approaching. You're doing good, Patricia told him after the first week. A lot of family members can't handle this, but you're present. That's what matters most. Present. That word again. The thing Lucien had failed at for so long, it had become his defining characteristic. The absent father. The distant husband. But not anymore. The police never came. Every day, Lucien expected sirens, expected federal agents to kick down the door with arrest warrants. But it never happened. He called Marcus once to ask why. Building a case takes time, Marcus explained. They want it airtight before they move, probably waiting for Tommy to finish his testimony. Could be weeks, could be months. Or they're watching, waiting to see what I do next. Maybe. Does it matter? No, I'm not going anywhere. And he wasn't. Lucian stayed in that house in Oak Park, caring for his dying wife and trying to be a father to a son who was slowly learning to trust him again. Marco's nightmares stopped. Or maybe they just changed. One night, Lucian woke to find the kid standing in the doorway of his room. "Can't sleep?" Lucian asked. "I had a dream about Mom." "Bad dream?" "No, she was healthy, like before she got sick. We were at the zoo, all three of us. You were teaching me about the animals and Mom was laughing." Marco's voice cracked. It felt real. "Come here." Marco climbed onto the bed. Lucian put his arm around small shoulders that shook with silent crying. "I don't want her to die," Marco whispered. "I know, me neither." "Why did this happen?" "I don't know. Sometimes bad things just happen, and there's no reason." "That's not fair." "No, it's not." They sat together in the dark, father and son, sharing grief they couldn't fix but could at least face together. "Will you stay?" Marco asked. "After Mom dies? Or will you go back to your other life?" "I'll be here as long as they let me, and when they take me away, I'll come back the second I can. That's a promise." "You promise a lot of things." "I know, but I'm trying to mean it this time." Marco didn't respond, just leaned against his father and eventually fell back asleep. Lucian carried him to his bedroom, tucked him in, and stood in the doorway, watching him breathe the way he'd watched Elena breathe so many nights, grateful for each inhale, terrified of the eventual exhale that wouldn't come. Mike. Elena deteriorated faster than the doctors predicted. By the end of the third week, she couldn't walk without assistance. By the fourth week, she rarely left the couch. Her skin had taken on a gray pallor. Her breathing sounded labored, even with oxygen, but her mind stayed sharp. She spent her wakeful hours organizing the future she wouldn't see. "I made a list," she said one morning, handing Lucian a piece of paper. He recognized her handwriting. Neat, precise, the same way she'd been making lists for 15 years. Grocery lists, chore lists, lists of things Lucian needed to fix but never did. This list was different, things Marco needs to know. "His grandfather's watch is in my jewelry box. Give it to him on his 18th birthday. The photo albums are in the attic. Show him who we were before everything got complicated. He's allergic to shellfish. Don't let him forget. He loves science. Encourage that. It makes him happy. He needs to know I didn't leave because I wanted to. I fought to stay as long as I could. Tell him every day that I loved him, even when he's too old to want to hear it. Don't let him grow up angry. Anger poisoned you. Don't let it poison him." Lucian read the list 3 times. By the third reading, he couldn't see through his tears. "I'll tell him," he managed. "All of it, I promise." "There's another list," Elena said. "For you." She handed him a second piece of paper. "Things Lucian needs to know. I never stopped loving you, even when I hated what you'd become. You weren't always wrong. Sometimes you were trying to protect us the only way you knew how. The house is paid off. There's money in the account under both our names. Use it wisely. Celine will try to use the baby as leverage. Don't let her. That child deserves better than being a bargaining chip. When you go to prison, and you will go to prison, don't waste that time in bitterness. Use it to become the man you almost were. Marco will say he doesn't want to see you. Make him anyway. Don't let him cut you out completely. Forgive yourself eventually. Carrying this guilt forever won't bring me back or undo the mistakes. It'll just destroy what's left of you. I'm sorry I wasn't stronger. Sorry I couldn't fight this longer. Thank you for staying. These last few weeks meant everything." Lucian couldn't speak, could barely breathe. He folded both lists carefully and put them in his pocket. "How much time do we have left?" he asked. "Patricia says days, maybe a week. Does Marco know?" "Not yet. I'll tell him tomorrow. I need one more day where he looks at me like I might get better." Lucian understood. False hope was a gift when real hope was gone. That night, the 3 of them watched movies on the couch. Marco sandwiched between his parents, laughing at jokes that weren't that funny, pretending everything was normal even though they all knew it wasn't. Around midnight, after Marco had fallen asleep, Elena turned to Lucian. "I need you to do something for me. Anything. When it gets bad, when I can't talk anymore, when the pain is too much, I need you to let me go. Don't fight to keep me here. Just let me go peacefully. Elena, promise me, Lucian. No heroic measures, no last-minute runs to the hospital, just comfort and peace and family. That's all I want. He wanted to argue, wanted to say they'd fight until the very end, but looking at her face, so thin now, so tired, he knew she was right. I promise, he whispered. Thank you. She fell asleep against his shoulder. Marco was already asleep on her other side, and Lucian sat there on the couch with his whole world pressed against him, feeling it slip away with every breath. Gok. Elena died on a Tuesday morning 3 days later. The sun was shining for the first time in weeks. Patricia had left an hour earlier after administering pain medication. Marco was at school. Lucien had convinced him to go, promising to call immediately if anything changed. Elena had been sleeping most of the morning, peaceful, comfortable. The medications keeping her somewhere between dreams and consciousness. Then her eyes opened, clear, focused, more present than she'd been in days. Lucien. He was beside her immediately. I'm here. It's time. Time for what? You know what. And he did. He'd seen enough death to recognize its approach. The way breathing changed, the way skin color shifted, the way someone's eyes looked when they were already halfway to wherever came next. Do you want me to call Marco home? No, let him remember me awake. Not like this. Elena, it's okay. She reached for his hand, her fingers were cold. I'm ready. I've been ready. Lucien wanted to scream, wanted to call an ambulance, wanted to fight and rage and refuse to accept what was happening. But he'd made a promise. So instead he climbed onto the couch beside her, held her the way he'd held her on their wedding night when they were young and stupid and believed love conquered everything. I'm sorry, he said, for all of it. I know, I forgive you. How? After everything I've done? Because holding on to anger takes energy I don't have anymore. And because despite everything, you came back. You stayed. That counts. Her breathing was getting shallower. Lucien could feel her heartbeat against his chest, slowing, irregular. Tell Marco I love him, she whispered. Every day. I will. And Lucien? Yeah? Be better, not perfect, just better. That's all anyone can ask. Then her eyes closed. Her breathing stopped. And the woman who'd loved Lucien Varelli before he became a king slipped away in the arms of the broken man he'd become. Lucien held her for a long time after, memorizing the weight of her, the way her hair smelled, the exact shape of her hand in his. Then he called Patricia, called Marco's school, called the funeral home, made all the terrible phone calls that followed death. And when Marco came home to find his mother gone, Lucien held his sobbing son and finally understood what Elena had been trying to teach him all along. Love wasn't about grand gestures. It was about staying, even when staying hurt, especially when staying hurt. The funeral happened 4 days later under gray skies that threatened rain but never delivered. A small service. Elena had wanted small, just family and a handful of close friends. No spectacle, no drama. Just quiet acknowledgement that someone good had left the world. Marco wore a suit that was slightly too big. Lucien had bought it 3 days earlier, guessing its sizes, discovering his son had grown while he wasn't paying attention. They sat in the front row of the funeral home chapel. Just the two of them, father and son. All that remained. The service was brief, a eulogy from Elena's sister who flew in from Portland, a reading of a poem Elena had loved. No mention of Lucien's world. No acknowledgement of the violence that had shadowed their marriage. Just a woman remembered, loved, mourned. Afterward, at the cemetery, as they lowered Elena's casket into the ground, Lucien felt Marco's hand slip into his, small fingers gripping tight, an anchor in the storm. She's really gone, Marco said. Yeah, she is. What do we do now? Lucien looked at his son, 9 years old, orphaned of one parent and about to lose the other to prison. We keep going, he said. We honor her memory by being better than we were. How? I don't know yet, but we'll figure it out together. Marco nodded. Together. They stood at Elena's grave long after everyone else had left, watching workers fill the hole. watching the physical reality of loss take shape and turned earth and wilting flowers. Lucien's phone buzzed. He'd finally replaced it yesterday. The message was from Marcus. Feds issued arrest warrant this morning. They're coming for you, probably within 48 hours. Just thought you should know. 48 hours. 2 days before his old life caught up with his new one. Lucian deleted the message. We should go, he said to Marco. Where? Home. We have things to do. They drove back to Oak Park in silence. The house felt enormous and empty without Elena. Every room echoed. Every surface held memories that now carried weight. That night, Lucian sat Marco down at the kitchen table. I need to tell you something. Is it about the police? Smart kid. Too smart. Yeah, they're going to arrest me soon, maybe tomorrow, maybe the day after, but soon. For how long? A long time. Maybe the rest of my life. Marco absorbed this. What happens to me? Your Aunt Sarah, your mom's sister, she's agreed to take you. You'll live with her in Portland. I don't want to move. I know, but you can't stay here alone, and I can't... His voice broke. I can't take care of you from prison. This isn't fair. No, it's not. I hate you. The words should have hurt. Instead, they felt honest, clean. I know. I hate me too sometimes. Marco stood up, started toward the stairs, stopped at the doorway. Mom's list. The one for me. Can I have it? Lucien pulled the folded paper from his pocket, handed it to his son. Marco read it standing there in the doorway. His face crumpled. She really loved me. More than anything in the world. Did you? Love me? Yes, I just didn't know how to show it. You could have just been here. That would have been enough. I know that now. Marco nodded, folded the list carefully. I'm going to bed. Marco. I'm going to bed. I don't want to talk anymore tonight. Then he was gone. Small footsteps on stairs. A door closing. Silence. Lucian sat at the kitchen table alone in the house he'd bought but never lived in, surrounded by the debris of a life spent chasing the wrong things. His phone rang. Unknown number. He almost didn't answer, but something made him pick up. Mr. Varelli? A woman's voice, professional. This is Agent Sarah Chen with the FBI. I'm calling to inform you that a federal warrant has been issued for your arrest on charges of racketeering, murder, and conspiracy. I'd like to arrange for you to surrender voluntarily tomorrow morning rather than forcing us to come to your residence. What time? 9 a.m., Federal Building downtown. Bring a lawyer if you have one. I don't. Then we'll arrange for a public defender. Mr. Varelli, if you don't show up, we will come for you. And given your history, that won't be pleasant. I'll be there. Silence on the line, like the agent had expected resistance. Thank you, she finally said. That makes this easier on everyone. The call ended. Lucien sat holding his phone, looking at the clock on the wall. 20 hours. He had 20 hours left before walking into federal custody. 20 hours to be a free man. 20 hours to be a father. He climbed the stairs slowly, knocked on Marco's door. Go away. Please, I need to tell you something. After a long moment, the door opened. Marco stood there in pajamas, eyes red from crying. What? I turn myself in tomorrow morning, so tonight's our last night. I don't want to waste it fighting. What do you want to do? Lucian thought about it, about all the nights he'd missed, all the bedtime stories unread, all the moments abandoned for meetings and deals, and the endless pursuit of power. I want to read to you, he said. Like your mom used to, if that's okay. Marco considered this. Finally nodded. The Dragon Book. Mom was in the middle of chapter 7. They climbed onto Marco's bed together. Lucien opened the book to where Elena had left a bookmark. Started reading in a voice that caught on every other word. By chapter 9, Marco had fallen asleep against his shoulder. Lucien kept reading anyway. Read until his voice gave out and the sun started rising and his last night of freedom dissolved into the pale light of surrender. The federal building loomed gray and imposing in the morning light. Lucien arrived at 8:45, early. He'd left Marco with a neighbor who'd agreed to watch him until Aunt Sarah arrived later that afternoon. Their goodbye had been brief. Marco had hugged him hard, hadn't said a word. Some goodbyes were too big for language. Agent Chen met him in the lobby. Young, efficient, the kind of federal agent who'd built her career on cases like this. Mr. Varelli, thank you for coming voluntarily. Not like I had much choice. Everyone has choices. You could have run. You chose not to. That will be noted in your file. She led him through security, took his personal effects, walked him to a processing room where other agents waited with cameras and fingerprint scanners and all the machinery of criminal justice. The process took 3 hours. Photographs from every angle, fingerprints, DNA sample, medical examination, background interview. By noon, Lucien had been officially transformed from a person into a defendant. They led him to a holding cell to await arraignment. Small concrete room, metal bench, bars on the window. The cliché made reality. Lucien sat on the bench and thought about Elena, about Marco, about the life that had led him here. The door opened. A public defender entered. Mid-30s, tired eyes, carrying a file that probably held every terrible thing Lucien had ever done. Mr. Varelli, I'm Daniel Ross. I've been assigned as your counsel. How bad is it? Ross opened the file. They have 14 witnesses ready to testify. Physical evidence linking you to multiple crime scenes, financial records showing money laundering, phone records, text messages. Mr. Varelli, I'm going to be honest with you. This case is airtight. So I'm looking at life. Unless you're willing to cooperate, name names, provide testimony against other members of your organization in exchange for a reduced sentence. Lucien thought about Vincent recovering in a hospital bed, about Marcus trying to hold together what remained, about all the men who'd followed him into violence, trusting he'd protect them. No, I'm not testifying against anyone. Then, yes, you're looking at life, possibly multiple consecutive life sentences. How soon? Trial probably won't happen for a year. Maybe 18 months? You'll be held without bail given your flight risk status. A year. 18 months. Time spent in a cell waiting for a verdict everyone already knew. Is there anything you want me to fight for specifically? Ross asked. Visitation rights. My son. I want to be able to see him, talk to him. Even from prison. Ross made a note. I'll try. But given the severity of the charges, they might restrict contact. Try anyway. He's all I have left. The lawyer nodded, closed his file. The arraignment is scheduled for 3 this afternoon. I'll be there with you. Just plead not guilty for now. We'll figure out strategy later. He left. The door clanged shut, and Lucien sat alone in a concrete box, thinking about karma and consequence and the price of becoming someone you didn't recognize. The arraignment was brief. Judge read the charges. Lucien pled not guilty despite everyone knowing the truth. Bail was denied, remanded to federal custody pending trial. By 5 that evening, Lucien was being transported to Metropolitan Correctional Center. The prison van had small windows. Through them, Lucien watched Chicago pass. The city he'd owned. The kingdom he'd built. All of it continuing without him like he'd never existed. At a red light, he saw a family crossing the street. Father, mother, 2 kids, laughing about something, normal, happy. The kind of life Lucien could have had if he'd made different choices. The light changed. The van moved forward. The family disappeared. And Lucien understood finally, completely, what Elena had tried to tell him. Power meant nothing if you had no one to share it with. Kingdoms built on blood always collapsed eventually. And the only thing that mattered, the only thing that ever mattered, was love. Simple, fragile, human. The thing he'd destroyed chasing shadows. 3 years later. The visitor's room in Metropolitan Correctional Center smelled like industrial cleaner and stale coffee. Lucien sat at a metal table bolted to the floor, waiting. He'd been waiting 12 years into a life sentence, but today felt different. Today Marco was coming. The door opened. A guard entered first, then a boy. No, not a boy anymore. A young man, 12 years old, taller than Lucien remembered. Hair longer, face harder. Marco stopped when he saw his father. Neither moved for a long moment. Then Marco crossed the room and sat down across the metal table. Hi, Dad. 2 words. After 3 years of refused calls and ignored letters. 2 words that meant everything. Hi, son. They looked at each other. Lucien saw Elena in Marco's face, in the shape of his eyes, the set of his jaw, all the best parts of her preserved in the child they'd made. Aunt Sarah says I don't have to visit if I don't want to, Marco said. She's right, you don't. But I wanted to, just once, to see if… He stopped, started over. To see if you're different. Different how? I don't know. Different than the person who killed people, who chose power over family, who let Mom die alone. I didn't let her die alone. I was there. At the very end, after 15 years of not being there. Fair, painfully fair. You're right, Lucien said. I can't change what I was. I can only try to be better now. How? You're in prison. How are you better? Lucien thought about the last 3 years, about the classes he'd taken, GED tutoring for inmates who couldn't read, therapy groups dealing with violence and trauma, letters written to victims' families that most refused to read, but he sent anyway. I'm trying to understand what I did wrong, he said. I'm trying to face the damage I caused, and I'm trying to make sure that if I ever get out, I won't make the same mistakes. You're never getting out. They gave you life. I know, but trying still matters. Marco studied him. Mom's list. The one she made for you. Do you still have it? I memorized it. They don't let you keep much in here. What did it say? The last thing? Lucien closed his eyes, saw Elena's handwriting, heard her voice reading the words. Forgive yourself eventually. Carrying this guilt forever won't bring me back or undo the mistakes. It'll just destroy what's left of you. Have you? Forgiven yourself? No, not yet, maybe not ever, but I'm trying to figure out how. Marco nodded slowly. I'm doing okay. In Portland, Aunt Sarah's nice, her husband's nice, they have a dog. I'm doing good in school. Your mom would be proud. I got into the science program at my school, top of my class. She'd be really proud of that. They fell into silence. Not uncomfortable. Just two people who'd lost each other trying to find their way back. I can't promise I'll visit again, Marco finally said. This is hard, seeing you here, knowing what you did. I understand, but maybe, someday, when I'm older, when I've figured out how to feel about all this, I'll be here, however long it takes. Marco stood. The visit was over. 30 minutes that felt like 30 seconds. At the door, he turned back. Dad? Yeah? I don't hate you anymore. I thought I should tell you that. I'm still angry, still hurt, but I don't hate you. The words cracked something in Lucien's chest. Thank you, he whispered. Then Marco was gone. Back to his life. Back to being 12 and normal, and loved by people who knew how to show it. Lucien returned to his cell. 7 feet by 12 feet. Concrete. Metal bed. Small desk. Window too high to see anything but sky. This was his kingdom now. He sat at the desk and pulled out paper. Started writing, not to Marco, not to anyone specific, just writing, documenting, trying to make sense of how a mechanic from the South Side became a crime lord, became a prisoner, became a father too late to matter. The story poured out. Late nights in auto shops, meeting Elena, the slow climb to power, the violence, the mistakes. Celine and the pregnancy that never was. She'd miscarried 3 months after Elena died, called him once to tell him, never contacted him again. The Volkovs, the nightclub, the arrests. Elena dying in his arms. Marco's face as federal agents led his father away in handcuffs. 3 years of concrete and regret. Lucien wrote until his hand cramped, until dinner arrived through the slot in his door, until lights out forced him to stop. Then he lay in the dark thinking about Elena's last words. Be better. Not perfect. Just better. He'd spent 3 years trying to figure out what that meant, how to be better from inside a cage, how to make amends for damage that couldn't be undone. The answer, he was learning, was small things. Teaching other inmates to read, calling out violence before it escalated, writing letters that might never be answered, choosing every single day to be marginally better than the man he'd been, not redemption. Lucien had passed the exit for redemption years ago. Just growth, change, evolution. The slow, painful work of becoming human again. Outside his window, Chicago hummed with life. People living, loving, making their own mistakes, building their own kingdoms that would eventually crumble. And somewhere in Portland, a 12-year-old boy was doing his homework, walking the dog, learning to be a person who didn't carry his father's sins. That was enough. It had to be enough. Because some stories didn't end in triumph. Some ended in concrete cells and supervised visits, and the quiet understanding that love, real love, wasn't about grand gestures or final victories. It was about showing up, being present, trying, even when trying changed nothing, especially when trying changed nothing. Lucian closed his eyes and let sleep find him. Tomorrow he'd wake up, write more letters, teach more classes, be incrementally better. And maybe, just maybe, in another 12 years when Marco was a man making his own choices, he'd visit again. Or maybe he wouldn't. Either way, Lucian would be here, waiting, present. Finally, irreversibly, completely present, for whatever that was worth in the wreckage of a life spent chasing ghosts. The end.